Yeah.
So as long as it's legal in your state, you can smoke weed. It's Twitch. Twitch is weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can do whatever you want. I mean, if you want to do cocaine, that's fine too, you
I
know.
don't have any strippers' asses to do them off of. So.
God damn it, Andy. What the hell are you even doing here then? I thought you were bringing the whores.
I should have next time.
Next time Andy's gonna bring the whores, everybody. All right, all right. We're gonna bring on our guest today. Everybody, please put your hands together for today's guest. And oh shit, Andy Koons, let's go. There he is. He made it. He's here. We did it.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
No problem, man. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's always weird reaching out on like platforms like Twitch or TikTok and stuff. Just be like, hey, I liked your stuff. Do you want to come talk to me on the internet?
Yeah.
Dude, TikTok is such a weird spot, and you know, like you're a comedian as well. Are you still doing stand up?
No, I haven't done stand up in a few years.
Okay.
I know a lot of people in the sort of local Southwest Michigan comedy scene. But yeah, I haven't done stand up in quite a while. So having a serious job and having a wife and kids, it's hard to get out at night and spend 3 hours at night at open mics and stuff like that to work on your material when, I've got a wife and kids that expect me to be home.
Yeah, no, I couldn't imagine being a stand-up comedian with a whole family, especially like just getting started and you have to be gone. It's like, well, I'm gonna go on tour and make $50. It's gonna cost us a lot of money. I'll be back and have fun with all the responsibility. I'll see you later.
Basically.
No,
and I floated that idea, and they were not a fan.
Oh, they never are. They just, God damn it, they just get in the way sometimes. And I have a kid and a wife, and they're just constantly up my ass too with that whole thing. But I sometimes go on tour as a musician, so that is, it's a different thing, but it's similar but different. But you have a comic sensibility. And this whole TikTok thing, I don't know, man. I really liked it. I like doing it, and it's fun, and it's a time sucker. But goddamn, that censorship is crazy. And I was thinking, have you had any community guideline strikes or anything? Yeah.
I've been banned twice. I just 2 separate occasions I just logged it, or I opened up the app and it said, you've been banned. Here's what's funny. You open it up and it goes, you've been permanently banned. And I'm like, oh, holy shit. But then there's an appeal button. And so I hit appeal on this permanent ban, and both times it worked. And so but they never tell you what you're banned for. They're just like, you're banned,
Right.
And so I appealed it both times. Obviously I got my account back. And so I've been a little more careful, and I use that very liberally, like a smidge more careful. And I've still got a bunch of videos that have been taken down, or ones where the sound was removed. There was one video I did, and this honestly was one of my favorites that I've done. I did this whole video about John McCain and how he's a horrible war criminal. Like I'm glad he's dead. Like the day he died should be a national holiday.
You mean he's a war hero?
Yeah. Ask all the people on the ship that he caught or that he set on fire if he's a war hero.
Oh Lord, he caught a ship on fire.
That's the theory. He it was the SS Forrestal, I believe, and his involvement with that ship blowing up is suspect. Or with that ship catching on fire is suspect. So I don't have all the details for that, but he was not a good dude.
So they took down your video about how he's not a good dude, and they were like, they're just not happy with you there.
I guess. I mean, initially the sound was removed, And I had a actually, I'm pretty sure I know why I got a strike on this one. There's a there's a part in the video where it says it's all like tongue in cheek, and so I in the video I'm talking about John McCain as, you know, a true American patriot, a war hero. We should all look up to this guy and be like, I want to show you John McCain's heroics in the form of pictures, and just show a whole bunch of pictures of like Baghdad mid-war where there's like buildings decimated, and there's like there's a little girl like on the ground, tears flowing out of her eyes because her dad is dead on the ground right in front of her.
Jesus.
And it's like that's John McCain's legacy. So
right.
TikTok didn't like me talking shit about a war hero or a war criminal.
Well, you know, it's funny too, like, because back in those days, it did seem like the war hawks were out, and, you know, like George Bush, you know, the George W. He's a fucking like, now we know that the whole Afghanistan, Iraq, or the Iraqi war, well, Afghan, Iraq,
weapons of mass destruction.
Yes, the WMDs were all bullshit, and it's just really interesting that we see him as like this old fucking dude painting pictures, hanging out with Michelle Obama,
holding hands with Michelle Obama. Yeah.
And he's like this cute old man now who's like having Freudian slips at conferences, talking about, you know, how he. Something about, it was supposed to be talking about Ukraine, but what came out of his mouth was Iraq or Afghanistan. It's just, he's a fucking war criminal. Like, that dude sucks. Like I don't understand how people forgot so quickly that this dude.
That's the part that just blows me away, because like if you look at how both sides of the political aisle, the left and the right, how they've been on war, which you know, in my mind, I think is objectively the biggest issue that anybody could care about is war.
Yeah.
You know, it's the thing that costs the most amount of human life. It is the most bloody, it's the most brutal, it's the most violent. And so I think, like, if there's a pet, like if you want to care about like trans issues, like that's fine. But also a bigger issue than trans issues is war. You know, if you want to care about the issues that people of color are facing in the country, that's also fine. But a bigger issue is war. We're talking about millions upon millions upon millions of people who get killed every year from war, versus, I mean, the numbers in the United States are not pretty, but they're not, they pale in comparison to like the amount of people that died during World War II. You know, they pale in comparison compared to the amount of people that died in the Iraq War. 1 million people died in Iraq from American involvement.
Yeah, and it's funny to see how many people have taken war up as like one of those causes as well. Like it's right up there with trans rights and BLM. Is like, you know, if you don't have your little Ukrainian flag on your Twitter bio, you're somehow a terrible human being as well. And it's so interesting to see how the goalpost has sort of changed over the years, where, you know, like back in my time, when it was in 2000, in the early 2000s, and shit, even longer. I mean, that war, I mean, honestly, officially ended last year, right? Like, we finally pulled our troops out and left the place in shambles, which is, that's our MO. That's like how we do it. But it's interesting to see how the idea of anti-war has shifted, because like I've always considered myself very liberal, and part of those tenets was like being about peace and no war, but now it's like war is great, you know, and like and I also remember a time when I didn't trust, when nobody trusted corporations, and everybody was like, you know, they're destroying our environment, they're destroying the planet, they're just money hungry motherfuckers. And now it's just like, corporations are awesome, you know, like Pfizer is the shit. Like, it's just like, it's so interesting how the goalpost has moved on what it means to be a liberal in the United States. I don't know, was that kind of your stance as well growing up?
I mean, okay, so I grew up in Kansas. My dad's a pastor.
No.
So
Oh, wow.
I grew up in a very, very conservative Christian home, you know.
Ah.
And so whenever I got to college, I only lasted 1 year in college before I got expelled. It was a Christian college. They caught me smoking weed.
How dare you?
So anyway, like after that, I did not want to move back home. I was like, fuck that. Like, I've had a taste of freedom. This is like, I'm not moving back home. So I got an apartment, got a job, and really rebelled hard against my parents. And so I went from being this little like conservative Christian kid to a few years later, like, I am identifying as like a socialist leaning, like democratic socialist type person,
Hmm.
which is just the polar opposite of a Kansas born and raised conservative.
Right.
Like, there could not be anything more opposite than a Kansas conservative than Bernie fucking Sanders.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
like, he talks with a different accent. He believes in socialism. He's fucking Jewish. You'd never find any of those in Kansas, and I was just like, that's my guy.
I love you, Bernie.
Yeah. So whenever I started to get into left-wing culture, especially after Donald Trump announced that he was running, I think that when Donald Trump announced that he was running, that's when something was triggered in the culture.
Yeah.
And that's when this sort of left-wing rabid response to Trump kind of came out. And I was not a fan of Trump. I've never been a fan of Trump. Like, he's just as full of shit as the other Republicans. He's just, I don't know. He's got a better TV personality, I guess. but no, he's just as bad of a war hawk as fucking John McCain is. So whenever after the 2016 election, I was all for Hillary,
Yeah.
Ironically. I'm super anti-war now, but back then I didn't really know enough about politics, but I was super, super pro Hillary. And after she lost, I was really confused. I was like, how did we lose? And I saw a bunch of over the top reactions from YouTubers and celebrities and stuff like that who are going, this is all because of fucking straight white males and blah 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 blah. And then you start to see the data, like, oh well, there are people who voted for Obama twice who voted for Donald Trump. So were they super progressive for 8 fucking years, and we're all kumbaya with all the different races in the country for 8 years during Obama's presidency, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they're like, oh, by the way, I'm going to go for the guy that everybody's calling a Nazi.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. And so I was like, I want to look into this. And so the first thing I did is I started like listening to his speeches, and I was like, oh, okay. The first thing I realized is that, oh, he's completely been misrepresented this entire time. He didn't say all these things. He didn't say Mexicans were rapists. He didn't, even going to Charlottesville, he did not pat Nazis on the back or anything like that. He explicitly said, like, those are bad people.
Yeah, he denounced them.
Yeah, he denounced several times, and so then I started looking closer into like Hillary's speeches, and then I get to the basket of deplorable speech, and I was like, that right there, that's why we lost. Because the left elite, the left wing political elite, do not give a fuck about people who live in the middle of this country.
Right.
They don't give a fuck about me or any of my blue collar friends. They don't give a fuck about my dad, who's been a blue collar worker his entire life, as well as being a Christian minister. They don't give a fuck about my wife, who works in a daycare, who takes care of other people's children every day. They don't care about people like that who in my mind, electricians and daycare workers and things like that are really the bread and butter of this country, and they do not care. It was all for social points, and they thought that they were going to skate. They thought they were going to win the election based on social points, and they didn't, because they pissed off the meat and potatoes of this fucking country, And I never switched over to be like pro Trump, but I finally started to like understand why he won, and started to kind of understand the people who support him, and yeah, from then, and I'm so sorry, I'm just telling my entire life story here.
No, that's the point.
Well, so after the 2016 election, after looking into it, I started seeing the rhetoric that I was hearing from left-wingers, from prominent left-wingers about Trump supporters, and obviously not understanding them and saying horrible, horrible things. And I was like, well, this is not what I thought the left wing was. You know, I thought the left wing was supposed to be about like, hey, we're going to have the better arguments. We're going to intellectually bring people over to our side, you know, but instead it was a guy posted something. He was a prominent podcaster in the atheist community. He tweeted something and said like, hey, if you woke up today, like, I just hope you have like a really good day. You're beautiful, blah, blah, blah. It was really positive till the very end when it said, unless you're a Trump supporter, then I hope you eat shit and die.
Yeah.
I was like, that's completely antithetical to what we're trying to do here. We're trying to bring those people over to our side. We're trying to get them to see why our side is better with better arguments. And so I responded and I was like, this is not the way to do it. This is embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like you're following the same trap that Hillary did, and that's why she lost. Because she stopped trying to win those people over and just started shitting on them. And so he was like, well, some people aren't worth saving. And then it turned into this whole fucking like dog pile thing where people are like, or it eventually got to the point where somebody was like, yeah, I can't wait till these Trump supporters die, you know? And then somebody responded to that and was like, man, I wish it was legal to go out and shoot Trump support. It was crazy. And I was like, this is the most insane shit I've ever seen. And one dude was literally like, that sounds like something a Nazi supporter would say. I was like, fuck it. If you want to say I'm a fucking Nazi because I don't want you to commit genocide, fine, whatever. And they're like, we knew it. He's a Nazi. And after that, that's when I was like, okay, this is not the club that I want to be a part of, you know? And so I was kind of politically agnostic for a couple of years. And then I discovered libertarianism through Dave Smith. He's one of the hosts of the Legion of Skanks podcast, and he also is the host of Part of the Problem. To anybody who's even remotely interested in libertarianism, Part of the Problem is an excellent resource. You should check it out.
Yeah, it's a good podcast. Yeah, I like Dave Smith. He's very funny too. He's a very funny comedian.
Yeah, and I from the first episode of Part of the Problem that I listened to, he was talking about like the war machine, and I think the thing that he said that just really hit me like a freight train, you know, because I'm coming from the left and having all of these sort of left-wing values of like racism is bad and poverty is bad and sexism and homophobia, all this stuff are bad. And so it was just the perfect timing, that episode. He says, yes, obviously racism is bad, but war is worse, you know? And he goes, all these things are bad, but war is always worse. And I tried to think of like the left-wing response to that, and I came up with nothing. There's nothing I could say that objectively proved that racism was a bigger problem than war, because the numbers, you just can't compare the two. You know, you're comparing apples to a truckload of fucking apples, you know, like, or you're comparing one apple to an ocean liner full of apples, whatever weird. I come up with dumb cliches all the time. But like, whichever one of those dumb cliches you want to use is fine with me. But it's like, yeah, you just can't compare the two. You know, the American war machine has caused millions of deaths since World War I, you know, not even counting like the Civil War. That was like 600,000 people. But since World War I, it's a meat grinder, you know, and people get thrown in all the time. They come out. The United States government doesn't give a shit about how they come out. You know, they don't care if you're dead. They don't care if you're in pieces. They don't care if you're missing an arm or a leg or an eye. They don't care if you have severe mental health issues afterwards. You get treated the same no matter what, you know? And it's all like these young men and women go into this machine and come out absolutely destroyed in one way or another to protect American interests, you know, and those American interests usually boil down to, well, there's this country that gives us money because we protect their oil lines, or there's this other country that gives us money because I mean, any number of things,
or the country has resources and we want those resources.
Yeah.
And so we're going to go ahead and take those resources.
Hmm.
And it's like, and the people who fund Washington and these politicians are the people who are making weapons, making, infrastructure. They build infrastructure. They're contractors. They're huge corporate interests that will be making billions of dollars
Yeah.
by pursuing these overseas wars. And it's gross. It is gross, man. And I don't know, man. Like this whole Ukraine thing is, I don't want. I feel for the people in Ukraine, but
Yeah.
when you look at, when you're looking on social media, when you're looking on the internet, and you see how much this country is really suffering, homelessness, and people are impoverished, people aren't getting health care, there's just so much that could be done. And this is my old lefty liberal side of me saying, it's like, we should be helping people here, maybe get them off the streets, maybe get some people some health care, like maybe help some people out, instead of shipping billions of dollars and putting it into pockets to these, multinational conglomerates that are
Yeah.
literally hiding their money offshore so they don't have to pay any taxes here. None of that really goes back into our country. It's all just
Hmm.
sort of going into bonuses and vacations and underage prostitutes in Thailand. It's like, we should be doing more with that money here, but yet we're, hooray, let's go and defeat Putin and go start another world war, which is sounds
Let's go start a dick measuring contest with another nuclear power.
yeah.
And I know that a lot of people like to say that bringing up nuclear holocaust and stuff like that is hyperbole in whatever, but it's like, okay, maybe to some extent it is a little hyperbolic, but at the same time, it's not off the table.
Right.
It's not outside of the realm of possibility. So of all cataclysms you can possibly think of, can we please, no matter how unlikely it is, can we please do whatever possible to steer away from nuclear fucking holocaust?
Is that possible? Can we do that?
Like, that's not too much to ask.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Every day when I wake up, I don't even have to try hard. Every day, whenever I wake up, I think to myself, I'm not going to do a single thing that'll steer us towards nuclear holocaust today. It's really easy. I've gone 33 years without doing anything that's brought us closer to nuclear holocaust. I haven't even broken a sweat.
Where's my measuring tape? The last thing I think about when I'm rock hard. Yeah, that's right, Naders. You let them know. No, I think you're right about the whole Trump thing, where Trump sort of got, because I was kind of the same way. And in the beginning of his whole campaign, I was just like, this dude sucks. This dude's a racist. Like he's awful. Like, who is this liar? And as you look into it, you see that how skewed the media was sort of creating this narrative, and a lot of it was him being bombastic and being a total sociopath, but they were taking him out of context, and they were picking and choosing, and they were editing videos to make it. And then as the pandemic went, I think that's what they call red pill. Isn't that what red pill is, when you finally see like how fucked up how the media and the government are sort of, and corporations are all sort of working in interest, and they all share an interest. I'm not sure. I still am not sure what red pill means. Do you know what red pilling is?
Yeah. So I mean, it's along the lines of what you said. The way I've always understood it, and your listeners can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the umbrella term, I would say, is when you kind of finally see the bigger picture. Like if you have blinders taken off or the veils taken off your eyes, because I remember whenever I came out, and I hate to use that phrase, but whenever I was like, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in God anymore. Like I had this really sort of just epiphany, like this intense epiphany. And I would say that in terms of religion, I was kind of red pilled about religion, in terms of like politics, usually it means that you you know, if you came from the left, you kind of see the issues that are with the left. But I've seen libertarians use the phrase red pilled whenever it comes to the cops, you know, when libertarians are like, oh, they're not our friends. You're being red pilled on the cops. So I kind of, you know, I don't think it belongs on any side of the political aisle. I think it has way more to do with like, oh, I see that this thing I've been led to believe this whole time is bullshit.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And, you know, like I was a big Obama supporter, and then as his terms were going on, you know, you see like how many drone bombings there was, and he was kowtowing to, you know, Wall Street and bailing all these people out and on these companies, and he was literally just another. He was just another corporate stooge that was put in place, and he was black. And that's great, and I love that we were able to sort of come together and get a black dude in there. And again, he had an elegance about him that I really appreciated.
That we haven't had since Obama.
Right, exactly. But you know, this dude's getting what is that peace award? What is that called?
The Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, he's getting Nobel Peace Prizes while he's, you know, murdering families and stuff. And I like that. I actually like your. I saw a meme you put on your Instagram. What was it? Drone bombing children was only cool when Obama did it, and some hippie girl like, it's just like, yeah, man. But yeah, it you know, like even throughout there, I think it started with me, and I've always been suspect of all these things, right? And like I've always been suspect of I've always been anti-establishment, and but it all sort of boiled. I think it came to a head during the pandemic when it was just so clear how fucked up and how many lies, you know, like how they were skewing all these different, you know, people were rioting in the streets, and mostly peaceful protest, and the reporter has like flames in the background, you know, it's mostly peaceful protest. And it all became very clear, and I think a lot of people responded to that. And you see that now, where people are just very mistrustful. People are just buying guns because it's like fucking we don't trust any of this shit. And then you know, I know you're in Michigan. We just had that East Palestine thing happen, you know, a month ago, and it was.
Is your water catching on fire?
Not yet, but soon. We're a little bit more downwind from them. We're more. I'm in Toledo, so they're more in you know, over there by Pennsylvania, and I know Cleveland had some shit going on, and Kentucky saw some stuff, and I think West Virginia saw some stuff. But in any case, you know, like it took them so long, like this administration so long to respond to that. No one in the news was covering it. It's still getting covered up. You know, like BlackRock owns LabCorp, which is the place where you go get your blood tested, and now people they don't test for the actual poisons that would come from that big chemical burn off, which is really interesting. But you know, nobody's talking about. But as soon as this fucking bank, you know, this Silicon Valley bank went, the president's on it the next fucking day. He's just like, I just want all of you to know that I got you. I got you. And
how long did it take Pete Buttigieg to get to East Palestine?
Fucking
3 weeks.
Fucking Trump went there before Trump. The fucking
see, here's the thing. Like, okay, so like if you want to look at the power struggle between the right and the left, the right is almost always going to lose in the grand scheme of things because the left has all the art. So the right doesn't have any art, you know?
Right.
It like the left has movies, the left has music, the left, you know, for the most part has like literature. Like they own all that stuff. And so the right is never going to win culturally. But the big problem that the left has is they keep letting, especially the last 8 years, they keep giving wins to the right. You know, they're people who are abandoning the Democratic Party in droves and flooding to the Republican Party, which is not the right answer. But like that's what's happened because they keep giving wins to the right. You know, Pete Buttigieg's taking fucking almost a month to get out to East Palestine where people were really suffering.
Yeah,
You know,
still are.
like people's waters are fucking poisoned.
Right.
And like that, and Trump was there like the next day. Dude, you handed him a fucking win.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
It's
no,
like,
for real. And then when you find out that like Obama banked at Silicon Valley, Oprah, Hillary Clinton, there's all these ties to these very prominent Democratic people or and lefties, and right away they're on it, you know, as other banks are failing. Naders, the whole bad cop movement was to keep our attention away from the FBI and their bullshit. I could see that. I could see that. You're still waiting for Obama's birth certificate? Oh, you better stop, Naders. You better fucking stop.
dude, that mystery was solved. He's from Kenya. Jesus.
We all know now. Which you know, that does bring up a good point about like how the DOJ is just sort of a strong arm of the administration, which is just the strong arm of corporate interests. So it's just, which again, you know, we say here shit on Democrats and stuff, but I mean, I'm not a fan of Republicans either. I don't think you are either. No. And you know, like this whole like anti-abortion shit is like, what the fuck's going on with that? Like, why are we continuously going backwards and locking shit down more?
Well, like, okay, so I'll give you my take on abortion.
Okay, it better be hot.
All right. I think we should eat the fetuses.
They're very nutritious.
All right. So that was the hottest take I could possibly think of. So no, I am extremely pro-life. All right. I don't like all the abortion bans, you know, and I want to give a shout out to a friend of mine named Spike Cohen. He was Joe Jorgensen's running mate in the 2020 election. She was the candidate for the Libertarian Party. She was terrible. Spike was awesome. So, Spike was on Patrick Bet-David's show, and he made a point that really hit me really hard. I'm super pro-life, and it has the same thing to do with why I'm anti-war. I'm anti-war because I think that, you know, I don't believe in the soul or anything like that, but I do think that as a human, I think other humans have inherent value, you know? And so I would like other humans to be alive and healthy, you know? And so that's why I'm anti-war. That's also why I'm pro-life, you know?
Yeah.
That's also why I'm anti the death penalty, you know? So, but he made a point on Patrick Bet-David's show where, sponsored by Pfizer.
Here, we'll do that again.
Brought to you by Pfizer. Fuck you. Pay me.
Thank you, Naders. I turned off the sound, but I just threw that in there because it needed to happen. It needed to happen. Thank you, Pfizer. Okay. I appreciate your money, your vaccines, our politicians, our news, everything that you give us. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
No, it's all right. So anyway, the point that he made on the show is, if you look at the United States government's war on drugs, we have better access to drugs now, you know, and they're dirtier and the drugs are worse, and there's fentanyl in this shit and they're killing people left and right. So the war on drugs has been an abject failure. The war on terrorism has created more terrorism. The war on poverty has created more poverty. Can you imagine what the war on abortion would look like? And I was like, fuck. I mean, whenever he said, and he is a pro-life guy too. But whenever he said that, I was like, oh, okay. All right. I need to start looking at this from a different angle. And so it's like, because I want the most amount of babies to survive, I want the government to not touch this issue at all, you know? And, I mean, if we're talking about like a total ban on abortion, that's when you can really see all the sort of horror stories that you hear from the left coming true. Like, oh, a cop pulled me over and asked if I was pregnant and made sure I wasn't going to go and get an abortion. Or, you know, this 14-year-old stabbed herself in the vagina with a hanger to try to kill this baby because she was afraid to go home with it. And like, that's when you really are going to see wackadoo shit like that happening. And so I want to avoid that as much as possible. And so because of that, government should not be anywhere near abortion. They're just going to fuck it up.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. And the other thing is, too, when you look at the statistics and how many people talk about, you know, how racism is such a big thing, and you think about, you know, where the Planned Parenthood came from, and this is very, old trope, but it's still, it's worth mentioning, is that
Yeah.
the founders were eugenicists, and their plan was to sort of eliminate a lot of these pregnancies from people of color, and to see how many millions of black people were sort of wiped off the face of the planet by being aborted. I do see the argument there, but I also see the argument of I think it's a lady's choice, and honestly, I have a very callous look at it, and I understand that it sounds horrible, but I don't care if you go flush your baby. Like, that's not my baby. It's not, it's not my business. It's the same way I look at sort of like these trans issues. Like, I don't really care. I homeschool
Yeah.
my son. If your school district wants to, promote chopping off dicks and tits, like, okay, whatever. That's not me. That's not my problem. And of course, I could see, there's also the argument of say, it's like, well, it can be your problem if certain policies are enforced, but it's still like, I look at it very like, this is not my problem. That's not my business. That's not me. That's not my family. That's not what's happening. So it doesn't really affect me. So I don't really care. Now, I see why some people care. If you're in a school district where people are promoting these weird pornographic images to kids, and teaching them that being white is evil, and you're innately evil if you're white. I get why people are getting upset about that. And that's where I say democracy should be enforced, because it's like, if you want that in your school district, I think the parents should be informed and they should be voting. But I mean, I know that most parents give a shit about anything, and they just send their kids off to school because that's free babysitting while they go and work a job they hate. So
Yeah.
I also see that aspect, but it's still like, if you're going to be involved and this is what you want in your district, then that's what you should have. And I kind of do see this, the other side of the argument, where people are who are against this sort of things. Is like, maybe you should think about homeschooling. Maybe you should think about moving districts. Maybe, and I know that's a big thing to ask, and not everyone could do that, but at some point, we gotta let people sort of live their lives in the communities that they want to live in. And if you don't want to be a part of that community, then just fucking go to a different one that's more accepting of how you feel and think. I don't.
Well, I mean, from my experience, I am an avowed atheist. I don't believe in anything fun or interesting. Like, if I can't see it or touch it, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
And so, but one thing I was very adamant about, and it's because it's the complete opposite of my experience as a kid, is I was like, I'm not going to force my beliefs or lack of beliefs onto my kids, and I was very adamant about that. And one day my oldest son came out to me and he's like, Dad, I'm a Christian. And I was like, that's really cool. I was like, I'm glad you believe in something bigger than yourself. I'm glad you're interested in this. If you have any questions, because I'm a pastor's kid. I spent my entire life in church. Like, if you have any questions about the Bible, you can ask me, and I'm not going to give you some shitty 14-year-old edgelord atheist answer. I'm going to tell you what the Bible says, and you can make up your mind, on what you want to believe in. And another part of that is, first of all, you're fucking awesome for homeschooling your kid. All right.
Oh, it's my wife. I just go and make money. She makes money too. I won't discount her at all, because she's very hardworking, but it's mostly my wife who does it. I feel I tried it in the first year and we both failed completely, me and my son. It was just terrible. So my wife had to step in. But anyways,
but I mean, either way, the fact that you guys are able to do that, that's
we make it work. We make it work.
Yeah. And so, like, that's something I wish I could do with my boys. I have 3 kids, and but my oldest, he's autistic, and he the public schools where I live in Michigan are trash. They're terrible, And my son, the autistic kid, was getting bullied and threatened. Like one kid was like, I'm gonna cut your mom's head off.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was like, Jesus Christ. And that was from like the most prestigious of the public schools here in town. And so finally, after he told us that he was a Christian, we're like, well, why don't we look at the Christian school? And we were able to scrounge up enough money to send him to the Christian school. You know, my other two boys, they do fine where they're at. They both go to like charter. Well, one of them goes to Montessori school, one of them goes to like a small charter school. But the Christian school, like, it's expensive. But there's a whole team of people who work with him, you know, who understand autism, because nobody at the other schools even cared. You know, they were just annoyed by him because they don't know how an autistic kid's brain works. You know, they don't understand or care to learn to understand how he intakes information and how he processes it and how he sees the world. And like, if you know any autistic kids, like, become friends with them, because they have some of the most unique takes on life. And it, like, he's 12, and I remember when he was 8 years old, we had long conversations about philosophy. Like, he was just able to pick that stuff up, and the kid's a genius, you know. And none of these public schools could be bothered to deal with him, because they didn't want they didn't want to work with his autism. They just wanted to work against it and be like, I don't understand why he's not changing. Well, it's because he has a totally different fucking brain than yours does, you dumbass.
Yeah.
So
No.
so we took him out of there, and like I said, as an avowed atheist, I put my son in a Christian school because that was better than what the public schools could offer.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, private schools, why not? Like, and it's not even that I'm against school or anything. It's just that my son has a different way of thinking. He's not autistic, not that I know of. He's a brilliant little boy, but like the way he thinks and the way he interacts with the world, it's just not conducive with public school setting. When we sent him in kindergarten, we sent him in, and he started realizing, he was telling us about the pilgrims, and we're just like, well, let me just tell you something, you know, talking about Thanksgiving, and we're very honest with our son. And like, he was just very disheartened by how much they're just teaching bullshit. And also, he was starting to like grind his teeth at night, and he was just he's like, I gotta ask permission to go to the bathroom, and they have us in a
It's weird, isn't it? Isn't that weird?
The way that they do like active shooter drills is that they all would go into the bathroom in this small little room and shut the doors, turn off the lights, and that was it. It was basically just go into a small place where you're very easily picked off, so that it's easier for the person who's shooting. And so that shit freaked him out, and we saw that very early on. And so when the pandemic struck and everyone was sort of forced to take on homeschooling, we just decided, like, fuck it, we're just gonna keep doing it, because he's not built for that. And we saw that very early on, and we were able to do it. And you know, that we're very fortunate to be able to provide that for our son, and he's killing it. He's fucking killing it. So there's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's interesting, you know, like watching through some of your old stand-up, you have you know, a whole bit about being bisexual, and I was just you know, like, how did that, you know, I assume you were born like that and you didn't choose to be that. And
all right. So,
but how was that conducive with your, you know, conservative Christian upbringing?
Okay, so, man, I never thought I was ever gonna have to address that specific.
Well, I mean, you're not, you know, like, you're not Christian anymore, and obviously,
right.
So
Okay,
I don't know
so,
how that affected you growing up.
Long story short, spoiler alert, I'm not actually bisexual.
Oh,
All right. So I'm gonna try to keep this as family friendly as possible.
You don't have
I was molested when I was 6 years old.
Oh, okay.
All right. Yeah. So, well, I mean, most of us were. What the fuck? So
fair.
Also, like, I've had 27 years to process this, so you can make whatever jokes you want about it. I'm fine with it. So anyway, I was
fucking victim. Oh, it's
so
no.
So anyway, I got molested when I was 6 years old. Had that bottled up for a long time. When I was 14, I was crying in my room. My mom comes in. She's like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I think I'm gay." And she's like, "Why do you think you're gay?" And I was like, "Well, because this thing happened to me." And she was like, "Whoa," you know? And like, God bless my parents. They, for being conservative backwoods hillbillies, they reacted way better than some other people I know. All right. My mom was like, okay, all right. First of all, you're not gay. You are going to therapy, though. I was like, okay, cool. So she put me in therapy. I started working on that. My dad was like, do you want me to go kill this guy? And I was like, well, he's a family member, so probably not.
No,
And
don't murder.
he was like, okay, he was like, say the word, I will go kill him.
Yeah.
Like he was ready to do it. And the guy that did it to me, he was 12, I was 6, and so he was a child. Also, he got molested for years and years and years by like his dad's friends' kids, you know. And so whenever he was like 8 or 9 years old, he's sitting in his living room, his parents are watching the local news, and all of a sudden this report comes on about this teacher sexually assaulting students. And he hears how they're talking, and he's starting to connect the dots, like, whoa, some of this stuff has happened to me. And so he turns around to his parents and he goes, hey, what's sexual assault? And his parents flip the fuck out. We don't talk like that in this house. Don't talk about that stuff. You know, that's inappropriate, blah, and flipped out on him. And so it scared him, you know. And that right there, and these two family members, if they're listening to this, you know who the fuck you are, and you can go fuck yourself because you ruined your fucking child.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that kid, you know, a few years later molested me, and that happened. And that for years and years and years I was struggling with that and dealing with that. And then finally I was at this like counselor, not really a therapist, but like a counselor, and she was like, well, did you ever consider that maybe you're bisexual? And I was like, oh, that's what it is. But here's the thing is, my entire life I've struggled with like clinical depression. And so whenever me, at least, whenever I am struggling with depression, or before I started to recognize it and get help specifically for that, I had no control over it. And so just for months on end, I'd be like, I don't know why I just feel like shit all the time. Like I feel like there's something wrong. And so I would try to figure out what it was. It would be like, oh, I'm not happy in my marriage. Oh, I'm not happy with my job. Oh, it's you know, a cavalcade of 50 different things that it could be. And so whenever somebody suggests something, you're in a really vulnerable position at that point. So whenever somebody says something that could suggest an answer to why you feel like shit, your brain just kind of grasps onto that like a fucking vice grip, and you're like, yes, that's the answer. And so when I'm in this really vulnerable state, somebody comes along and goes, well, maybe the reason that you've had sort of these struggles with getting molested is because actually you're bisexual. And I was like, yeah, that's what it is. Finally, somebody said something that made sense. Like, this is the answer I've been looking for my entire life. And so then that became like part of my identity. You know, I called my parents, hey, guess what? I'm half gay. I told my wife, I told all of my friends, and everybody was cool with it. They're like, cool. Yeah, it's 2015. Nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah.
And and so after dealing with that for a while, I then started going to see a psychologist because I was still really dealing with depression, and the sort of rent a therapist, if that's what you want to call them. They're like people who took like 2 semesters of psychology, and they get a job as like a social worker or something like that. And they're like, yeah, I can do talk therapy, and they fucking can't. They don't know what they're doing.
Right.
So sorry to any social workers that are, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about different ones. But anyway, so I met with this psychologist, and I went to him for like 2.5 years, and we started getting into that and sort of the struggles that I was having with that. And he started talking about trauma responses, and he never like he's a like devout Catholic dude, but he is a consummate professional. And so he never once was like, you're not bisexual, you know. But he starts talking to me about trauma responses and how whenever, especially children that go through a traumatic experience, and it could be, you know, if a girl gets raped or something like that, or if they're sexually assaulted or get in a really scary car wreck or something like that, anything that's traumatic, you can respond in a couple of different ways. Few people are able to process that in a healthy way and move on with their lives. But there's also people who uh, who will seek out opportunities to relive that experience, but from a perspective where they're in control. And so that's why sometimes you see rape victims who go on to be extremely sexually promiscuous, or you see sexual trauma victims grow up like there was a show, and I don't remember what it was called, but it was from Big J Okerson and Dan Soder, and they would interview. It wasn't the Bonfire; it was like a sideshow, where they would interview porn stars. And one of the questions in their interview was, "When was your first sexual experience?" And after like 50 of these girls were like, "Oh, my first sexual experience was my dad fucked me," or something horrible and crazy like that.
Yeah.
They had to stop asking that question, and so it's like, you can see these are all porn actresses. They're growing up to expose themselves on a really, really large scale. It's not healthy. Objectively, it's very unhealthy to be a porn actor or an actress. Like the human brain's not wired for that.
Yeah.
And so they are responding to that trauma that way, and they are recreating their trauma, but in a perspective where they're in control. And then there's other people who shut down to sex, or whatever it is. They develop a phobia. Somebody who gets in a really bad car accident might never get in a car again, or they might be constantly on edge when they're in a vehicle, because they're afraid of another car wreck, or somebody, was molested or raped or something like that, and they grow up to just completely shut that part of them off, to where they're like, it's very hard for them to open up sexually to people. And so I was coming from the perspective of like, I was I thought if I had some sort of like attraction to men, that I was kind of recreating that experience, but where I was in control. And once I saw that and kind of processed that, that's when I was like, well, shit, dudes are butt fucking ugly. Like, I'm not interested in dudes. It was just I was very emotionally vulnerable when this was told to me, and I took the bait and held on to that for a couple of years, and then I uh, after a while I was just like, no, this is just not, it's not true. And so that was like a 15-minute way to say like, no, I'm totally not gay, dude.
I'm not gay. Whatever. You're gay.
You're gay.
You're gay. Commie Cliff, good to see you, my friend. Welcome in. We're just doing stuff here. Everybody go follow Commie Cliff. He's our favorite commie. Every Christian says we're all products of Adam and Eve, but we're all just incest from Noah's Ark. How dare you, Naders? How dare you? Well,
he's not wrong. I mean,
I could see that though, like that whole trauma response and stuff like that could be. Because I've definitely had like I've definitely kissed dudes before and had like experiences, but it was never like anything where I declared I am now gay or half gay or whatever it is. And it is interesting how somebody could suggest to you, that maybe you're bisexual, and you ran with it, and it just sort of reminds me of what's going on right now, where people are, you have these young kids who are, constantly on their phones. I mean, it seems pretty obvious that these phones and social media is pretty detrimental to children. You have all these young people who are killing themselves, and then you have people who are just when they're young and you're a teenager, or your hormones are going, you're easily suggestible, especially if you had some sort of trauma in your life, and someone comes along like a teacher or something and says, hey, you're pan, or you're this, you're queer or anything. And I would never, I'm never trying I'm trying to use a word that I can't remember how to use. I would never negate that from somebody who feels that way. But, a lot of times when these people sort of go through these surgeries and they start hormone therapy, you're seeing more and more that they are actually they're either gay or something other than trans. And you even see in the UK how they shut down an institute where they were taking kids and who are trans, and they stopped they stopped that until they're a certain age now. I can't remember what it was, but in the UK and Europe, it's starting to become more and more prevalent where they're like, no, we're not going to transition children. And this is, and Nader said something about it too, or maybe Reina said something about it. I can't remember, but it was like, like parents should be more in charge of this and not so much the teachers. And I tend to agree with that. I tend to agree that, maybe kids should have a little bit more development in their heads and let their brain develop a little more before you start cutting off dicks and tits and stuff, just in my opinion. But of course, I'm not going to tell anybody they can't do it, and I would never say, hey, you can't do it, because I still have this fundamental idea that this is fucking America, man. If you want to cut your kid's dick off, fucking cut your kid's dick off. Again, it's not my problem, but I do see how that can be problematic, especially when you have YouTube is filled with people who are detransitioning and who are like, oh man, I wish I would have just sought therapy and not like fucking a doctor who's making hundreds of thousands of dollars off of this transition. But again, I'm not here to say don't do it, but I see why it's problematic, and maybe parents and parents should take more of take charge of their kids' lives. Maybe they should be like, hey, maybe you're just going through something, but whatever. Cut your kid's dick off. Do your thing, baby. This is America. Do your thing.
Yeah, give it to some less fortunate kid that doesn't even have a dick.
There you go. Cut your dick off and give it to a
There are
dickless
starving children in Africa that would love to have that dick.
Take those fetuses and send them over. Those aborted fetuses, send them to Africa. God damn it, that's full of nutrients. God damn. I've only tried sucking one dick. It was mine, and I couldn't reach it. How dare you, Naders? You just keep coming. How old were you for sex ed? I was in 8th grade. Oh, that's a good question. I think I started in 6th. When did you start sex ed? I went to a Catholic school, so I don't think I really had sex ed.
I went to
actually.
a Christian school, so our sex ed, was, I think it was my senior year, and it was just one semester, and I could boil down that entire curriculum into one sentence, which is like, don't have sex or you'll die.
You will die and go to hell and burn.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I don't think I got sex ed until I was in high school. Because I went to just a regular public high school, but from 3rd to 8th grade, I was in a Catholic school, and that didn't even come up. Like, we had health, but like it wasn't like, this is a dick, this is pussies and titties and stuff. It was all just we're just gonna glide right over that and go right into Luke 45 verse 3. And we're just going to read how you don't lay with other men. Fucking, just the whole thing. It wasn't that wild, but, it is interesting. I do feel like there is a very strong, with Christianity these days, I do feel like there's still this strong movement that discounts homosexuality, and it's just it makes it hard for me to want to even do that, because I'm not so much an atheist. I'm probably more agnostic or whatever. I'm more of a fence sitter on the whole thing, but I do believe people should live out their lives the way they want to and not have to feel like they are ashamed of being who they are. And so it's so hard for me to get into these Christian ideologies, because a lot of the times they are just. I went to a church service the other day, and the dude was just up there preaching and doing his thing, and I kind of like the pastor, because he's very much against this whole idea of this whole like super lefty woke. You're so woke that you eat other wokesters, like how the left eats itself all the time because they're not left enough and you're not woke enough. So, like, I really like that. I get into that shit, but then they start going into, it's like, he was towards the end, so he was sort of crescendoing up, and that shit's just theater in my eyes. I'm a performer. I've seen good lighting. You know, they got good lighting, and they're on a stage, and whatever. I know what that is. I know what a performance is, and so he's sort of crescendoing, and then like one of the last things was, you know, and people are getting into it, and they're like, "Amen." Amen. And then he's like, and that marriage is between a man and a woman, and homosexuality.
Like, hey, what?
And everybody, and homosexuality is wrong. And people are like, amen, preacher, amen. And I'm just looking around like, oh Lord, this is a fucking hate rally. All right. Sick.
That's where I really wish Christians would get to a point where they're like, maybe we should leave our religion out of politics, because our religion, and like, again, I'm a atheist. I send my kid to Christian school. A requirement of that is that we have to attend a church, you know? And so I'm an atheist who goes to church every week, you know? And like, yeah, I kind of have a soft spot for Christians, you know? And because I'm the most familiar with them, and you know, 99.999% of them are just the nicest people you're ever
who hate the gays.
Who hate the gays? I mean, who doesn't hate some gays? You know,
there are some gays that suck. I mean, let's be honest here. It's not like all gays.
From my understanding, most gays suck.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. They do suck. My dad told me that my dad told me if I keep looking at porn, I'll go blind. I told him, Dad, I'm over here. Good one. How dare you?
I was waiting for him to be like, if I could see that son of a bitch, I'd tell him off.
Yeah, me too. That was good. But I'm sorry, you were interrupted. But you have a soft spot for people who hate gay people.
I have a soft spot for Christians, and I also have a soft spot for gays and lesbians. And it's because whenever I finally kind of got out of the whole like gay people are going to hell phase, it was because of lesbians that I worked with at Starbucks at the time. I was like 19 years old, and this is like a fucking Lifetime movie. So like I was living in Bartlesville, Oklahoma at the time. My parents were living in Wichita, Kansas, and that's like a 3.5 hour drive. It's Christmas Eve. There is an inch, not an inch, there's like a half inch of ice that we just had an ice storm.
Oh shit.
And I was supposed to leave that night so I could go spend Christmas at my parents' house. And I called my mom and dad. And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't think I can make it. I had a tiny little Ford Ranger that did terrible in the winter. And so I was like, I think it's too dangerous. My dad was like, yeah, you probably need to stay home. You know, we'll meet up later. I was like, okay. So I was all bummed out because my roommate, who was, you know, a really good friend of mine, he was at his family's house, and I was just alone in my apartment on Christmas Eve. And then I get a call from my manager, and her name was Molly. She was a lesbian. And she goes, hey, I know that you were talking about going to see your folks, and I know the ice is really bad. Just want to make sure that you're okay. And I was like, well, actually, I couldn't make it because, you know, my truck isn't going to make it all the way out there. And she was like, what about your roommate? Where's he? And I was like, he's at his parents' house. She goes, you're telling me you're alone on Christmas Eve? And I was like, yeah, I am.
I know.
She's like, well, can you make it to my house? She lived like 4 blocks away. I was like, I could try. So I grabbed my keys and jumped in my truck and spent Christmas at my lesbian boss's house. And her and her girlfriend were the nicest, most loving people they could, and they knew where I was coming from. They knew I was a pastor's kid. They knew I thought all gay people were going to hell. They knew that I thought it was disgusting and detestable and all that shit. They knew that. They didn't care. They were like, this guy is alone on Christmas Eve. He can't see his family, and we don't want him to be alone, despite the fact that he thinks that we're horrible, disgusting humans. And so they invited me over. I went over there. And the Christmas Eve, This is 2009, Christmas Eve, 2009. I walk into a lesbian's house. I get introduced to Quentin Tarantino movies, and then they're like, do you want anything to drink? And I was like, yeah, I was a bitch back then too. And so I was like, yeah, do you have any Bacardi Ice?
And you got any Malibu?
Yeah. And they're like, no, we have beer. And I'm like, okay. And I always hated beer.
Yeah.
So they're like, all we have is Sam Adams Winter Lager, but we have a metric fuck ton of it. And I was like, okay. After a few of these, it won't even bother me. So I stay up all night with them watching Quentin Tarantino movies, drinking Sam Adams Winter Lager. Christmas morning, they wake up. We have coffee together. You know, we spend the day together. It was fantastic. It was wonderful. And that night, I went back to my apartment, and my roommate still wasn't back, but another friend of mine invited me over to like a house party. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll come over and go over there. And he goes, you want anything to drink? And I was like, hey, Smirnoff Ice. He goes, all I got is beer. And I was like, fuck it, fine. And it was like a Coors Light or something, some cheap beer. Hands it to me. And I took a sip, and I was like, this tastes amazing. And so Christmas 2009, I spent with lesbians. They taught me how to watch good movies, and they taught me how to drink fucking beer. These two bitches taught me how to be a man. And I'll never forget that. And so, and literally from that day forward, that was like, I was like, you know, maybe the Bible doesn't know what it's talking about when it comes to gay people.
Yeah.
You know, that was one of the first sort of chinks in the armor.
Yeah.
As far as like my faith goes, that really was kind of like the catalyst that eventually led me to be like, I don't think I believe in God anymore. And it was because of these two wonderful, loving, compassionate gay women, you know? And so because of that, I've always got a soft spot for them.
Oh, Moving Dutchman, thank you so much for that sub. Oh, you resubbed. Look at that. Wow, 25 months. Moving Dutchman, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you. And yes, TikTok. Andy is a TikToker, but he also does other things. He's not just TikTok. Don't let TikTok define him. Moving Dutchman doesn't like TikTok, but you know that's beautiful, man. It's that when you grow up in sort of a closed off environment, and you actually get a chance to go out into the world and meet people, you learn that it's like, hey, not everybody is right where I grew up, you know? Like, that's why it's like, I always tell younger people, it's like, get the fuck out of your house, go somewhere else for a good amount of time. Like, go to a city, move out of state, go abroad. Who gives a fuck? Just get out of your little shitty town. And even if it's not a shitty little town, you still, even if you grew up in a big ass city, like, you still can be in a small minded group of people who influence you in a crazy way. I mean, you are your friends, right? So you do need to get out there and live. And it's cool that you're able to go and meet some people and be like, hey, gays aren't bad, you know, like the gays are cool. I lost faith very young. Like my sister fed me LSD when I was like in 8th grade, and I was just like, this is all bullshit. This is all garbage.
You're like, the space elves told me that God's not real.
God's not real. Yeah, and it's just, and I've just never looked back from there, because it's just, and, you know, again, I don't have anything against Christians. I did it for a long time, and it was something that, you know, it was unnecessary, because why make unnecessary enemies? It's like, I think
a lot of people who lose their faith go through a phase like that, where they're, because I mean, I was 25 when I became an atheist. And so, like, I felt like for 25 years I was lied to, and also 25 years I was dumb enough to believe it. Not saying that religious people are dumb. I'm just saying, like, you know, like I fell for what I think is a lie for 25 years. There's a lot of built up anger, you know, and so, like, I would pour it into music, I would pour it into my online presence, and, oh, you believe in God, fuck you. And, you know, I was super angry. And then it got to the point where, like, my wife came up to me and she's like, some of my friends don't even talk to me anymore. because they see the shit that you post online. And I was like, okay, I gotta chill the fuck out.
It's like fuck Christians.
I think the one, and this is one where I was just trying to be as offensive as possible. Is I was like, what was it? Jesus said he loves me and wants to get inside me. Hashtag gay Jesus or something like that. Dude, I mean, I had family members that like called me. They're like, what was that?
Gay Jesus. That's hilarious. I love that. Gay Jesus. I mean, zombie Jesus, the time of zombie Jesus is coming up shortly. We got Easter coming and
Yeah.
zombie Jesus will be upon us. So that's fun. No, like Christianity is a great thing. Like you said, there's a lot of good people in Christianity that are, and some people, they're not even like, they don't even hate the gays or anything. It's just like, but it is crazy how people can take that shit so seriously that, I got a friend who is, gay, and they're really struggling with their religion because they're very religious as well. But they also struggle with their identity and who they are, and it's very sad to me. I know a few people like that who are gay, but because the Bible says it's wrong and their preacher says it's wrong, they choose to they go inward, and they hate this part of themselves, and that's what I don't like about it, man. It's like it will teach you to hate, even though it's supposed to be something about love. And to me, that's it just doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? It's just that doesn't make sense in my head. So I do think that the Bible and the Word there's some good information in there. And there's some ancient knowledge that lies within it that's very useful and philosophical and such. And so I don't discount the whole thing. It's just that it's not really for me. I don't think there's some white guy in the clouds watching us jerk off. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't think it's like that, at least for me. But Born to be Gay. Thank you, Moving Dutchman. Go for it, baby. Go for it. But it's
if there is a God, I do hope he is watching me jerk off.
I want him to watch.
Bro, that's been a lot of wasted cum all these years.
Yeah, right. It's like I like it better when people are watching. So if God is in there, he spends a lot of bathroom time with me. Okay, so what exactly is a libertarian anarcho-capitalist? What the fuck is that?
Okay, let's start with libertarianism. The basis of libertarian philosophy is self-ownership. All right. And so self-ownership is Mike, you own yourself. You own your body. Your body is your property. Okay. And hell yeah. And so nobody, not me, not anybody, has the right to tell you what you can do with your property. Okay. And it's not just your body. That is your car, your house, your driveway, your lawn, your firearms, your furniture, whatever it is. If you own that property, nobody has a right to tell you what you can and cannot do with it, so long as you are not infringing on the property rights of somebody else. All right. And so, and we believe that property rights are extremely valuable, and your money being another aspect of your property. One of the basic tenets of libertarianism is that we believe, and this might actually be closer to the anarcho-capitalism, but we believe that taxation is theft. And basically the government cannot survive without income, and the way that it garners its income is through taxation. Well, the only thing that's come close to being a good pro-taxation argument is the social contract, but it's not real. You haven't signed it. I haven't signed it. Nobody asked me to sign it. No, like, show me on a piece of paper where I signed and gave consent to have a certain amount of my income stolen from me every 2 weeks. Like, where did I consent to that? And then if you don't give that money to them, you know, usually the company that you worked for already takes it out of your check and gives it to the federal government. But if you don't, if you refuse, if you go, you know what, I'm just going to keep my money, you get thrown into a cage.
Right.
Okay. And so you get threatened with violence, you get thrown into a cage until you comply to their demands. So I don't see how anybody who's honest can look at the nature of taxation and really call things what they are and not come out the other end of that being like, oh yeah, this is theft. You know, some of the funniest counter arguments I've heard is like, okay, well, stop paying your taxes, and what's going to happen? Well, the cops are going to come arrest you. Oh, well, my tax dollars pay for those cops' salaries, so I'll just tell them not to.
Don't. Stop.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, good luck.
Yeah. Well, there was that idea. I remember there was that movement that I think Lauryn Hill got wrapped up into it, where they were like, there's nothing in the law that says you have to pay your taxes. And I remember there was this movement a few years ago. It's probably been longer.
I know what it's called. Sovereign citizens.
Is that what it was? Yes. Yeah. Yes. I am a sovereign citizen.
By the way.
What?
Those people are dipshits, by the way.
Oh, Lauryn Hill, I love her music, but she just seems like a terrible person. So
I don't even know who that is. Maybe I would if I saw a picture of her. I don't know.
She's just a singer. Well, she's a singer. She's part of the Marley dynasty now. But she had some hits back in the 90s, part of like the golden age of hip hop, Fugees. That girl, you better watch out. Some guys, okay, never mind. We're talking to a metalhead.
Oh, that Lauryn Hill.
Yes, she's.
I don't know.
Anyways, yeah, the sovereign people. Why are they idiots? Why are they awful?
First of all, whether there are laws in the books or not about tax. First of all, like, the government doesn't care, and if there is this lapse in the legal system where it's like, oh, we forgot to write down that you have to pay your taxes or something like that, or you have to have a driver's insurance, they're just gonna bloop, there it is. They're just gonna do that. Yeah. Either way, you still have to obey them or you get thrown into a cage. Right. All right. There are hundreds of videos out there of people saying sovereign citizen to a cop right before they get carted off to fucking jail. So sovereign citizens, if you're out there listening, hit me up on Twitter. Let me know how that's going for you.
How's that cold cement floor of a jail cell? No, I've seen those too. Probably on TikTok, where they just get carted off and out the gate they go. So anarcho-capitalist, then, like, that's part of anarchism yeah. Okay, and so
anarcho-capitalism is anarchy. So no government, no ruler, and then capitalism as the economic system. Capitalism, when unrestrained, is the best way to organize society, is the best economic system, because it's all voluntary, and it's the entire basis of it is consent between two parties, and so, not to oversimplify, but like, if you have a lemonade stand, and somebody walks up to you and goes, I would like a cup of lemonade, and you say, okay, well, it cost me this much to make it, but I also have bills to pay, so I'm going to put an upcharge for this amount, so that way I can pay my bills and then put a little away. It's going to cost you 75 cents for this thing of lemonade. Okay, so the seller has set their terms and have told you their terms, and you can say, okay, I'm going to pay the 75 cents, or you can be like, fuck you, it's too expensive, and you're going to go somewhere else, And so it's all voluntary. It's nothing but consent, and you are exchanging currency in some sort of medium, and that could come in the form of services or something like that. But like it's a free exchange. There nobody is threatening you with a gun, you know. But if you look at the exchange between something like the IRS and you know, there is a gun to your head, and that is jail time or extremely heavy fines. It's a threat of violence in one form or another, and you don't know how much you're supposed to pay, but you are forced to pay that.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of socialist, communist leaning people, like, they hear capitalism and they kind of go, you know, but that's because even in Karl Marx's time, when he was writing the Communist Manifesto, he wasn't talking about capitalism as it truly is. He's talking about crony capitalism. A lot of the sort of black bloc people, like the Antifa types, whenever they're talking about capitalism, they're talking about crony capitalism. Now, that's assuming that any of the Antifa people actually know what the fuck they're talking about in the first place, you know. So like some hot blue-haired chick might have said, like, just be angry about capitalism, and some dumbass, this, you know, skinny kid with jet black hair is like, yeah, cool, fuck capitalism.
Yeah,
you know?
we have sex now?
Yeah. Yeah, these fucking skinny ass pick-me's.
These are fucking soy boys. That's my favorite.
I don't know why I'm railing so hard against skinny people. I want to be one of them.
I know, me too. There's nothing wrong with skinny, but that's another thing, is like this whole movement for body positivity, even if it's like detrimental to your health, and TikTok, which is I love the platform, but it's such a breeding ground of people, of like fat women who are like, you can't tell me I'm fat, I'm healthy. You're not.
I am a member of the tribe of the fats.
Yeah, me too.
And these people are trying to fucking kill us. All
Yeah,
right, like,
yeah,
it
does
I
seem like
look
it.
at myself in the mirror and be like, oh, I look pretty gross, you know, and like I need to make some changes. Like I have a treadmill, just had a frame that you can't see, that I've been meaning to set up for months.
I swear,
It's probably gonna take me another 2 months before I finally take that fucking thing down and use it.
Yeah,
but like these people, and a lot of it is people are making money off of it, you know. Like these body positivity people, like they're making money in some way or another, you know, but
Right.
It's at the cost of, you are now convincing young people that they don't need to make healthy choices.
right.
You're now convincing young people that good is bad and bad is good, and all this kind of 1984 shit. It's like,
Right.
dude, no, like weighing 400 pounds is not attractive. It's, I mean, maybe some dudes, but like, it's not healthy, you know. And I remember I saw a show, and there was a nutritionist on there, and then some body positivity woke person who's saying like, oh, you know, healthy doesn't mean thin. And she's like, no, it does actually, because that means that your body is processing fat the way it's supposed to. Like, it's not storing it because you're properly feeding yourself and you're properly active and stuff like that. She's like, no, but beauty comes in all sizes. She's like, it fucking doesn't, you know. Like, this is where it's like, can we just call things what they are? Like, can we just talk about objective reality right now?
Yeah.
If you're 500 pounds, if you're 400 pounds, you are killing yourself.
Yeah.
You are committing suicide in the most slow and painful way possible. And then all the people around you have to watch you do this to yourself. You know,
Yeah.
I'm talking as a complete hypocrite because I'm a fat motherfucker. Like,
I too am a fat motherfucker.
but it's these people are lying to us, you know, and they don't want you to see objective reality for what it is.
Yeah, and it does seem to be like this whole movement of changing the language and changing what's real and what's not. And you know, I'm willing to be like, hey, if you want to be fat, and that's fine, and if you feel beautiful, that's great. You know, I'm willing to concede to that. But I'm not willing to concede to the fact that you're not killing yourself. The fact that you're not killing yourself. And Lovely Lace, this deserves to be recognized. Lovely Lace is just put in there, she's lost 141 pounds. And that's fucking fantastic, Lovely Lace. Hell yeah. Fucking A. You give her some of this. Lovely lace. That's beautiful. I've actually I've lost 10 pounds in the last couple weeks because I stopped overeating every time I fucking eat a meal, and I work out, like I have worked out constantly since for 6-7 years now, maybe longer, but uh I've always worked out, but my weight would always fluctuate because there's times, well, I mean, like, I don't know about you, but I like to eat my emotions, and I also deal with depression and ADHD and all that shit. So it's there's a lot going on. So sometimes in a bad part of my life, I'll just be like, fuck it, I'm gonna eat until I'm fat and I don't care. But just by not overeating every time I eat, I've lost 10 pounds, and that's great. I'm proud that I've been able to do that. And to sit there and try to force feed us these fucked up facts, and then you have a whole generation of people who actually believe this shit. And like we have a community member here named Morby who's always like, don't talk about the fats. And I love Morby, but it's like, man, she's part of that generation where it's where it's like, again, if you want to be fat, do your thing, baby. I'm not here to tell you not to be fat, but don't try to make me say that that's healthy. And people, and there is a thing that thin people doesn't necessarily mean, being thin doesn't necessarily mean you're healthy, because you can be, thin and have, you could be a smoker or have autoimmune situations and shit like that. But your body is not working as hard to pump blood, to absorb nutrients, to fucking process shit, just because you're thin. I mean, it's like just being thin, and it doesn't mean that you run 10 miles every day. Just being thin, your body is working less to do more. So it's, you have an advantage on people. Mm-hmm. Of course, anybody can get cancer. Anybody can, people get AIDS and shit, whatever. But it's like, dude, it's just, there's no sense in trying to tell people that. And I don't know, man. It's weird that we're living in this world where we have to accept people so much that we're willing to start denying facts.
Yeah, and I think that's really what it is. It's this toxic level of tolerance, and it's like there are some times when you just have to like put your foot down as a society and be like, no, like this is the fucking line right here,
right?
And so like my wife's uncle, he's a gay guy. He lives with us. All right. Long story, like we basically adopted him. Okay. But he's like our fourth kid, really. And so he lives with us. He's great here. He's great with my kids. And him being gay is a huge fan of RuPaul's Drag Race. All right. And so he started watching the show, and then I would like sit in the living room and be like, oh my God, you're watching this gay ass shit again. Come on. Like, and then after a while, I'd be like, this show's so gay, but that dress, I mean, it looks cool.
It really does look good on him.
And so like after a while, I'm like, oh my God, I can't, that girl looks fabulous. And so then I really got into the show, and because I started to realize that it is an incredibly impressive artistic expression. And because each one of those queens is a seamstress, is a dancer, a singer, a comedian, a choreographer, a makeup artist, a hairstylist, a fucking sculptor, and all of those things all wrapped into one profession. And I was like, well shit, I play guitar and bass and scream into a microphone. I do 3 fucking things, and so like I was just, once I saw it that way, that's when I was like, oh shit, that is an art that is on a completely different level than what anybody realizes. They just think it's dudes painting their face and wearing a dress. Right. And it's so much more than that. Yeah. And so whenever I hear that there are these kid-friendly drag shows, the best part about drag is that it's raunchy. That's the best thing about it, is that it is completely sexual in nature, and it's raunchy, and there are dick sucking jokes, and there's fucking vagina jokes and tit jokes and stuff like that. That's what makes drag great. And it's because it's one of the last bastions of like raw, like raunchy comedy and entertainment, you know, because they'll talk about butt fucking and like anything, you know, and a lot of these bitches are fucking hilarious. And so like watching the show, I gained this deep appreciation for drag, but then seeing these kid-friendly drag shows and then seeing the left's response to that, where it's like, if you are against children going to drag shows, then all of a sudden you're a bigot. And I'm like, no, you're ruining drag. you're ruining this incredible art.
Yeah.
And so it's like the vast majority of drag queens out there agree with this too. They're like, yeah, don't bring your fucking kids to a drag show. Are you retarded?
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I don't know if you can say that on Twitch. So.
I don't think so, but it's fine. It's a mature channel. I definitely, you have to click a button that acknowledges that this is a mature show. So
okay,
whatever.
Well, I meant the R word in good way.
You should have just kept going, man. Just keep going.
I was talking to the. Anyway,
no, well, and you know, like I've taken my kid to. There's a place called Hamburger Mary's. I don't know if you're familiar. It's a chain restaurant, but there's one here in Toledo, and you know, we took our son there, and it's more of a family and tamed down. But if you go to like a drag show, like I used to live in San Diego, and there's this bar called Lips. And it's exactly what you're saying. It is fucking hardcore and very talented human beings. And drag queens, RuPaul compared drag queens to Marines. I mean, I don't think so, but okay.
Well, I can see the comparison, but at the same time, it's like no, they're fucking not.
No, drag queens aren't out fighting, you know, terrorists and shit.
They're not like crawling under barbed wire fences. Like, show me a single drag queen that can like take an M4 apart.
Yeah,
you know? Like,
yeah.
M4,
No, my kid.
M14.
My kid plays South Park. Yeah, no, my kid's very exposed. But we've never, you know, I would never take him to like one of those hard, and he's not even allowed in those shows anyways. Yeah. And then again, this comes back to like when you see, I'm sure you've seen that one video where it's like a collage of like just drag queens like bouncing their ass in kids' faces, and it's great. Like there's one thing where it's like a family friendly drag show, and then there's another thing where they're straight up stripping and they're putting their ass out, and they're like doing, you know, waving their ass in kids' face. That's just weird. I don't know like why adults would want to do that for kids unless there's something more to it, but
unless there's something sinister there,
you know, like that's weird. But you know, but again, this comes to me, and I guess this is to me, if you want to take your kid to a drag show like that, go do it. I don't give a fuck. That is not on me, bitch. Like, take your kid, cut their dicks off, take them to a drag show, and then all of the other fucking leftist parents will see you and applaud you and give you the fellation that you want. I don't know if that's a word, but whatever. But it's still...
I don't know if it is either, but I know exactly what you're talking about. It was a well-constructed sentence, my friend. No, I think you're right. And so it's like, I kind of, whenever it comes to abortion, whenever it comes to like kids transitioning and kids going to drag shows and stuff, my basic philosophy is I'm not going to take my kids to a drag show, and I'm not going to force transition onto I'm not going to allow my children to transition until they are 18, preferably 25, because then that's when their brains are fully developed. But like and if they're going to after that, like I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, you're not my son anymore. Oh my God, now you're my daughter. Like,
Lord.
I've always, like, I have all boys. I've always wanted a daughter. And so if one of my kids turns out to be trans, then fucking fine. I had to use a cheat code to get a daughter, but I got it.
Daddy's little girl.
Yeah. But it's like I'm not going to take my kids to drag show. I'm not going to transition them whenever they're too young. And I'm not going to force my beliefs on them.
Yeah.
but I retain the right to look at a parent who takes their kid to like a filthy drag show, like an adults only drag show, and be like, that's a piece of shit parent. You know, I reserve the right to say that publicly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I kind of look at that because that's where conservatives jump in and they're like, yeah, so we need to like ban drag, right? I'm like, no. This is the same thing as like what the fuck was her name? Al Gore's wife, Tipper Gore, trying to ban
rap
heavy
music.
metal.
Yeah,
Rap and heavy metal and shit like that. Like it's the same thing. And so it's like, no, like we don't need to ban it. We don't need to ban anything. All right. What I need to do is I need to focus on what I do have control over, and that is my own family, you know. And I don't mean like control everything that you do, but like that's where my jurisdiction ends.
Right.
Is okay. So what's the best defense against kids going to drag shows? Well, I'm going to show my children what a good father does. I'm going to show my kids that this is not appropriate for young kids, but I can also at the same time be like, this is an incredible art form.
Hell yeah.
You're just too young to see it, you know?
Yeah.
And then whenever it comes to abortion, like I don't want the government getting involved with abortion, but I do think that abortion is murder. So what's the answer there? Well, the answer is I'm going to teach my boys that the smartest thing to do is to use protection, and that whenever they are ready, they can have a child. And alternatively, if they're human and they make a mistake, I want to teach them how to be a good parent. And I want to teach them that I had 2 of my 3 kids before I got married. It's not the end of the world. That was one of the best things that, again, my conservative Christian pastor dad told me whenever I told him that my wife, you know, my girlfriend at that time was pregnant. You know, he was a little pissed off in the beginning for like 10 minutes. And then he switched over to grandpa mode and he goes, well, this is not the end of the world, you know? And that really resonated with me, you know? And so I'm like, okay, well, that's the answer right there. The answer to, if you think abortion is murder, is teach your sons to not create a baby that will get aborted. You know, don't get involved with somebody who would do that. Then if you do have a child out of wedlock, or if you do have a child in a situation where there shouldn't be a child, you are going to be like, okay, this is not the end of the world, and I have a great support system, and I'm going to love this child, and I'm going to raise this child, and I'm going to do the best that I can. You know, that is the, in my opinion, the best approach to that stuff, because I don't know every situation. I don't know, you know, I don't know what it's like to get raped as a 14-year-old and have to carry a child. I don't know. In my head, I think I have the right answer, you know, and I think the right answer is to, well, like, if you don't want that child, to give that child up for adoption, or if you have like good parents or something, like they would help you raise that child. I think that's the right answer. But I don't fucking know, you know? And so the last thing I want to do is get the government involved with any issue like that, because they're just going to make the problem worse.
Yeah.
And I am somebody who, I love babies. I love holding babies. I love snuggling babies. I know everybody watching this is like, wow, that guy with the beard is like super badass and tough and like looks scary. But honestly, you put a baby in this fucking room and I melt, you know?
Yeah.
But I am self-aware enough to know that nobody thinks that about me.
Yeah, man, babies and puppies and shit. Whoa, woo, like
that's when you know that you're a dad.
Yeah.
When you're like in a store and you walk by a little baby outfit and you're like, that's cute.
Oh,
you know,
smiling at little babies, like, oh my god.
Yeah.
When
you look at like kid clothes and you're like, that would look cute. You're like, oh shit, I'm 100% out of childhood. This is all adult. I'm a dad.
Fucking
you know?
Right. Fucking right. So metal, you're metalhead musician, writer, person who makes jokes. So when did music come into play?
I have always been obsessed with music. I can tell you exactly the catalyst that turned me into a metalhead. Did you listen to Christian music growing up?
No.
Okay, so that's all we listened to
I
growing up.
listen to more Christian music now. That my wife just recently rediscovered Jesus, so she is all in right now, and all she's listening to is Christian music, and it's getting stuck in my head. I'm just like, oh God.
Well,
Anyway.
okay, so what's some of the good stuff that you've heard?
Let's see. The one that's good is I'm a lion, let the lions roar.
Oh, this sounds
I
like worship
am
music.
Judah, lion. And then there's another one about valleys, and I don't know. Fuck it. They just
This
get.
all sounds like praise and worship music.
It is. It's
like,
super
yeah,
praisey, white
I
people
think
stuff.
praise
I
and
love
worship
gospel
music
music. Personally, I like Kirk Franklin and shit like that. That shit's dope. That's
I can kind of get down with gospel stuff, like black gospel.
Yeah.
Not white gospel.
Not white gospel.
Not like Gaither family shit like that. That's all my dad listened to. I fucking hate it. And I absolutely hate it. I think it's garbage music. It's not even real music. It's just old people shitting into a microphone. All right, but there was this band, and they were like a rap group, a Christian rap group. They were called DC Talk. All right.
Oh, I remember those guys.
Okay, well they were they actually put some artistry into their music, you know, and they had a song come out called Jesus Freak. And it was right around, you know, the grunge boom and stuff like that. And so they're like, well, we want to write a grunge song. And so they write the song called Jesus Freak. And it was the first song I ever heard with like distorted guitars. I remember hearing it, and like to this day, like it's kind of a cheesy song, but to this day, I still fucking love that song because I heard it and it was this brand new sound. I was like, what the fuck is this? And then after that, like I could only listen to Christian music, and so I had to search all over the place to find good stuff.
Hold on. Hold on.
The first one. Say what?
I'm just listening to a little bit of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's cheesy as hell. But
okay, that's enough.
Yeah,
it's not bad. It's grungy. Yeah, I get it.
But like as like a 7-year-old or 8-year-old hearing that for the first time when all you've heard before that is shit, like hymns and shitty white people Southern gospel music, like horrible music. And then I hear that, I'm like, I have to hear more of this. And so then from there, it goes from that to a song called Ignite by the OC Supertones, which is a ska song, but it was their kind of take on grunge. And after that, I heard the song Southtown by POD. And that was the first like kind of legit heavy song that I ever heard. And it was like rap metal, you know, which is okay. But I mean, fuck it. The fundamental elements of Southtown album and Satellite from POD are two killer fucking records. In the worst genre in the world, but they're two killer records. So after that, I got into this band called Project 86, and after Project 86, it just exploded because that's when like Zayo and Living Sacrifice and Beloved and Norma Jean and Esoteric and like some of these sort of fundamental Christian heavy metal bands, you know, like metalcore and deathcore and stuff like that. Like that's when they started popping up. And that's when I was just like, this is what I am. I am a metal head. I fucking love metal, you know? And after I graduated high school, that's when I bought my first non-Christian heavy metal album. And it was The Number 12 Looks Like You.
That's a band, or that's the name of the album?
That's a band. They're like a mathcore band.
Oh, I'd never heard of them. I'm more old school, like Slayer and Pantera and.
Dude, I mean, I was like, let's see, I was in my late 20s the first time I heard Slayer, and then I got to see them on their farewell tour. It was incredible.
Yeah,
it was like, I don't know. I fucking love Slayer too.
Yeah.
Once I graduated, that's when I started getting exposed to like all sorts of metal that I just never knew existed. You know, fucking Megadeth and Slayer and Cradle of Filth, and you know, I'm not too much into Cradle of Filth now, but like Behemoth, you know, some of the more black metal stuff. But yeah, that sort of musical obsession that started with the song Jesus Freak. I remember I'm sorry, I'm all over the place.
No, it's all right.
I was at my aunt's church. She was doing something. It was like a board meeting or something, and the pastor's son was like, "You want to go play some of the instruments on the stage?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So he's like playing guitar and stuff, and he's like, "Have you ever played the drums before?" And I was like, "No." So he turns on their electric drum set and just taught me the basic like basic beat, and I it clicked. Like I just instantly got it. I was like, okay. And then I started fucking around and did fills, and it took me years to learn how to use the bass pedal, but I started out as a drummer. I got a drum set at home, and then really started, I would play songs from CDs that I had, so I would learn songs. But then when I was 16, my step grandma, her name is Linda, she's a wonderful woman. Her son got a guitar for one of his birthdays and played it like twice, and then just never touched it again. And so it sat in her attic for like 10, 15 years. And then whenever I was 16, she's like, "You ever wanted to play guitar?" I was like, "Yeah, I've always wanted to." She's like, "Okay, well, I got one." And so she goes and gets me this electric guitar. It was bright red. It was called a Phase 10, which is not anything like it. I tried looking it up, and it's just a generic shitty guitar.
Was it like a Strat knockoff or something?
Yeah. Yep, it was a Strat knockoff. So I had that for years, and fucking got a little teeny tiny little first act amp that had like built-in terrible distortion.
Let's go.
Yeah. And so I didn't have anybody to teach me how to play, and so I was just like, well, I'm just gonna tune all the strings so that whenever I basically was gonna have all the strings harmonize with each other, so that way I could just lay my fucking finger down on the whole entire fret, and it would all basically be a power chord.
Yes, let's go.
And so all through high school, that's how I played, and that's when I started writing music. That's when I started like writing songs and constructing them. But I never had access to recording equipment or knew anybody that could record stuff. And so these were all just songs that were in my head. And whenever I got into college, for the 1 year that I was in college, that's when I actually finally learned like drop D tuning and standard tuning. And I tuned my guitar to drop D so I could learn some under oath songs. And then after that, everybody had a MacBook, which all the MacBooks had GarageBand on it. Somebody showed me how to record some tracks, and I was like, okay. And so I made this little 5-song EP when I was in college called Porcelain, and I don't have access to that anymore. I know. But like it was really bad. But like I released this 5-song EP. Nobody bought it, so I just gave it out to all my friends. And after that, I just became obsessed with recording music, And so whenever I got expelled from college and got my apartment, me and my roommate, we were both musicians. And so we turned it into this, little shitty studio where we recorded all the local bands on GarageBand, and they put it on their MySpace. And yeah. And whenever I met my wife, I met her on the internet when I was in college, and she turned out not to be a dude. So that was great. So I decided to drop everything and move up to Michigan because I was in love with this girl, and got up here and just obsessively was recording. And so I've actually recorded 2 other full-length albums, but that was back in my like Christian days, and so it's not at all applicable to me. And plus, some of it's really dated. Like one of the songs had a chunk in it that was dubstep. And
that's dope though.
Yeah.
But hey, you're like, I'm gonna mix these genres. I'll be the next best thing.
I know. I remember I was like, I'm gonna do something nobody's ever done before. I'm gonna mix heavy metal with EDM, and then Attack just exploded on the scene. I was like, fuck these guys, man.
Fuck them and fuck their face. And so now you so I'm interested because I'm really digging your like, and I love metal and stuff. So, but I don't I don't listen to it as frequently as I did when I was younger and more angrier, but I definitely have a soft spot for it. So when I heard it, I was just like really thankful because I was like, all right, you sent it to me, and I'm just like, please don't let it suck. Please don't let it suck. And then as soon as I heard you come in and just start rip roaring, I was like, thank you, God, it did suck. Because like I reached out to you. I didn't really know about how much. My rule is on the show you have to be some kind of artist. So it's like a musician or even comedian or whatever it is, content creator, whatever. Mostly musicians, because
You have to be making some shit.
you have to make something. It's a music podcast, so I try to keep it artistic or whatever. So I didn't know where you were and what your skill levels were, and then I heard what you're doing. I was like, oh. Yeah, it's like it's dope, man. It's really dope. So I'm glad it didn't suck. And so your new project is called God Emperor. And what are you playing all the instruments? You have people you hired in. What's going on here? What's the instrumentation?
So my budget for this album, if I was about $0.
Nice.
So so I'm using Easy Drummer 1 for the drums. But luckily I have a background as a drummer, and so I can program not shitty, stupid sounding drums.
Yeah.
And so I did all those. I don't use any loops or anything like that. I didn't use any pre-made MIDI tracks or anything like that. So every beat in the drums, like, I programmed myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm playing the guitars, I'm playing the bass, I'm doing all the vocals, I did all the mixing. And by the way, no formal education in audio engineering. So if you hear it and you're like, oh wow, that mix is terrible, that's why. I mean, you could probably tell me that. I don't know.
No, it's not bad at all. I mean, I think there's a couple where the drums are kind of buried, but it's not anything horrible. I wasn't like, whoa, this fucking mix is garbage.
All right, well, that's the thing that I've been afraid of. Like, throughout, like, every recording I've ever done, I'd be like, man, if like a real producer heard this, he'd be like, this is dog shit. But
no, it's not, man. It really isn't. It isn't bad at all. And so, I mean, so this is a one-man band sort of thing.
Yeah. And like, I don't really have any plans to like take it on the road or do it live or anything like that. Just because, I don't have, I'm just not in a situation where I could ever possibly do that. And I don't know enough musicians around here to do that either. But the main purpose of it is so we were talking about how right-wingers don't really have any art. So libertarians don't either. And so this was kind of my answer to that. And not to toot my own horn or put myself on a pedestal or anything like that. But I think if there is one thing that I'm good at, is I think I can write a pretty good metal song, And so I'm like, well, I want to take that and I want to do something positive with it. As sort of negative and depressing as this album kind of sounds, like the whole concept of the album is talking about the government as this sort of parasitic, greedy, bloodthirsty organism, and it's represented on the album artwork as this pig with pustules all over it, and it's wearing the Pope's outfit. and the reason and all of that was done really specific, or really with purpose. Like, none of it was done to be offensive. It was all done for the purpose of sort of visually showing what I see the government as. And this incredibly evil, incredibly greedy, endlessly hungry organism that is trying to replace God, and where that comes in. Have you ever heard the term statism?
Yes, but I don't know what it means.
Okay, so if you hang out with libertarians, you'll hear that word a lot. And basically, a statist is somebody who worships the state, And so and you can usually pick out a status by how hard they suck the cops' dicks whenever they're watching TV. And so, and like you see like an unarmed black guy get shot by the police, and they're like, "Well, what was that black guy doing?" Well, it doesn't fucking matter. He didn't have a gun.
Yeah.
And the cops killed him. You know, and it's just like it doesn't matter how many different perspectives you can show them on how government in general, not just the American government, pick a fucking government, Canada, Australia, Germany, Ukraine, Russia, it doesn't matter. Like all of these governments, their existence is predicated on stealing from the populace, and so I mean, especially with ours, you have the military industrial complex, which is, weapons companies literally in bed, not literally, but they're in bed with politicians and unelected members of the state that will absolutely fabricate things in order to guarantee contracts with the federal government. If you look at things like the Gulf of Tonkin, if you look at things like, what was it?
9/11.
Fucking 9/11. Yeah. No, the ship that was blown up.
I thought that was the Gulf of Tonkin, where they blew up a ship.
There was a
beginning of Vietnam.
That's Vietnam, but I'm talking about the one Lusitania.
Oh yeah. The Lusitania that was blown.
Yeah,
that was
Lusitania.
German, right? German.
Yeah.
They blamed Germany.
Everybody
right?
said, "Oh, it's a passenger ship loaded with all these innocent people." But then, just back in I think it was 2008, the divers went and looked at the wreckage of the Lusitania, and they're like, "Oh wow, this ship is full of munitions." So it was behind enemy lines. It was munitions on an American ship or on a British ship. I don't remember exactly, but it was a ship at a place where it wasn't supposed to be, carrying munitions during wartime. And so it's like, okay, well, you didn't tell us the entire story, but that was the excuse that you used to get involved with that war. Pearl Harbor was the excuse that America used to get into World War II, when Pearl Harbor could have absolutely been avoided. Because nobody likes to talk about the sanctions that we were putting on Japan, the fact that we cut off their supply lines, the fact that we're fucking their economy. And so it's like the American government pushed Japan into a position where, and I'm not justifying Pearl Harbor, so don't be stupid. Not you. I was sorry. But it's like that they're putting Japan in a position where they are trying to coax a violent reaction out of them, so they can be like, look what they did to us, and we can go and fucking nuke them.
Sounds familiar with Russia right now.
Very familiar. It sounds familiar with Russia. It sounds familiar with fucking Afghanistan and Iraq with 9/11. Like, that's where I'm not like a conspiracy theorist guy. I think 9/11 is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, me too.
I think I almost said Barack Obama. I think Osama bin Laden. I think Osama bin Laden got a bunch of money from Saudi Arabia and used that to plan this attack, and he flew a couple planes into the World Trade Center. I think it's pretty straightforward. But at the same time, you could almost consider it an inside job, because the reason they flew those planes into those buildings is because of the American support of the state of Israel and how they were treating the Palestinians. The Israeli state has been committing genocide against the Palestinians. And when you have people who have suffered at the hands of the Israeli state, who are our allies, and they're saying like, we're flying these planes into these buildings because of your support of those people, like that's preventable. We could have pulled out of that whole situation and been like, you know what, we're not taking a side. You guys figure your shit out. We could have done that, and they could have worked it out themselves. And guess what? 3,000 Americans would not have been killed.
Yeah, no, it's we do have a tendency to put our nose in business that maybe we should keep out of, but also again we got to think about that there's mouths to feed in the industrial the military industrial complex, where they do want to see these sort of things go down. They do want this to happen because it's a huge business. Lockheed Martin is killing it right now.
Oh yeah,
killing it.
Lockheed Martin, Boeing.
Yeah, man.
I mean, people don't usually think about Boeing as a weapons manufacturer, but they make fucking planes.
Yeah.
What do you think we fly those bombs to those countries on?
Yeah, man. It's a huge business, and so why wouldn't you want business to be good? If you're an executive over there and you have pull in Washington, which you do because you fund these campaigns, you fund these politicians, they definitely take your phone calls. Why wouldn't you want this to happen? And especially with this Ukraine shit and Burisma and fucking the Biden's connection to it. It's like, oh fucking get the fuck out of here. There's huge deposits of what is it, natural gas in Ukraine that could be tapped into. Our president has fucking ties to it. Like there just seems like there's a lot of interests that are aligning, right? That doesn't need to that doesn't really need to be a conspiracy. What was it? Fucking Russell Brand's been quoting this, but George Carlin, he says, like, when interests align, there's really no need for conspiracy, right? I don't remember what he said. What is that?
Yeah.
Fucking, hold on, I'm gonna get that fucking thing right.
Are you talking about whenever he said it's a big club and you ain't in it?
No, he was on. I think
Carlin,
he was on.
right?
That is Carlin, but it was that
Was it when he was on Bill Maher?
Yeah, when interests align, conspiracy. Carlin.
While you're looking that up, the main purpose of the album is to add some culture to the liberty movement and give us, give libertarians some basis for art, because we can get political and run elections and do all that stuff until we're blue in the face, but nothing is going to change until we change the culture, or at least create our own,
Yeah, I agree with you, and you made a great point. Whereas like the left has all the art. I mean, they control the culture and they control the sway of the people. You don't need a formal conspiracy when interests converge. That's the quote, and that's just how it is. It's not really a conspiracy when everybody's sort of benefiting off of these things that are happening. When people are benefiting off of building bombs and provoking these wars, it's fucked up. But so yeah, just sort of bring it back to your album. I think that's awesome. That's a great idea, and I don't think you need to go these days. You don't really need to tour albums. You don't really need to do that. Like you can just have an album do really well just off of streaming and selling it, on Bandcamp and stuff. There's this one metal artist. She's fucking rad, and she doesn't tour. She doesn't play live. All she does is create content, and she fucking does really well with just selling her. She makes a whole living just doing that, making her music. And
is she a vocalist?
Yeah, she's a vocalist and a guitar player. I can't remember her name. She was like she had like a whole class online that she was teaching for a while. I remember when Facebook was actually worth a shit. Kind of, she was doing that whole thing. I think it's. Should we listen to a song? Should we?
Hell yeah.
Well, should we blast a song here?
Let's see. Defanged. If you want to get into gun control,
let's go.
Or the Second Amendment. Plus, there's a lot of clean vocals on that one.
Oh, it doesn't need to be clean. Oh, you mean like where you're singing in clean? Okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's listen to Defanged. And
am I going to hear this on my end?
I think you will, but let's just make sure you can.
Okay.
Boom. There we go. And there you go. Now you're for sure gonna be able to hear it. All right, well, let's listen to Defanged by God Emperor, aka Andy Koons.
Hold on. The album is called God Emperor.
Oh, what's the name?
The project is called Monopoly on Violence.
Oh shit! I did.
My bad. That's on me.
It's all good. So you don't have any music released under this project name,
right?
Okay.
This will be a debut for Monopoly on Violence.
Sweet. And when's this coming out? When do you plan on dropping it?
May 2nd.
May 2nd. Let's go. Okay, so we're gonna listen to Defanged off of God Emperor by Monopoly. What?
on violence.
Monopoly on violence. Let's fucking go. All right, here we go. Let's check it out.
Against children. And in Odessa, I met the mother of a 15-year-old girl who was shot by an AR-15. And that mother watched her bleed to death over the course of an hour because so many other people were shot by that AR-15 in Odessa and Midland. There weren't enough ambulances to get to them in time. Hell yes, we're gonna take your AR-15, your AK-47. Come and get him!
All right, what are your thoughts? What do you think?
Dude, it's so fucking good, man. It's like fucking so brutal, man. I love it. And I do like this idea because this is a big debate right now going on in my household actually. Because I want, I want a firearm, and my wife is so against it, and she actually grew up with violence and around guns and shit, so she's super against it. And I don't know, man. The main reason why I want a firearm is home protection. I don't want to go out and fucking shoot nobody. I don't ever want to shoot any other human being. I think that would be the worst thing. I don't want my child to get, to have an accident or anything. I'm very much, I respect firearms. Like I want to, a fire, a safe, I want to make sure that everything is locked up and nobody gets hurt. And I'm very much aware, I go shooting with friends who've been in war and stuff, and they're very adamant about, the rules and like trigger finger off the trigger. Make sure even if they say it's unloaded, you fucking check no matter what. Like just very strong, very just strongly advocating for safety, and that's where my heart is, so it's kind of a big debate right now. But like I keep hearing this idea that what is it? It's like you can't have the First Amendment without the Second Amendment.
Yeah,
and
I mean, both the first and the second. I mean, they can't. Neither one can exist without the other. You can't have the first without the second, but you can't have the second without the first. And the second is to protect the first, and the first is to talk about the second. Like whenever it comes to me, and back when I would consider myself a leftist, that's when after the Parkland shooting, I was like, well, Texas, you lost your right. Or that was Florida, my bad. I was like, everybody just needs to have their guns taken away. We can't be responsible enough with them. And even at that point of being that sort of idealistically left, I saw a video of all people, Ben Shapiro. And to this day, I'm still not a fan of Ben Shapiro because he's also a war hawk who thinks that Palestinians are less than human. Fuck him. Anyway, he had this video where he was talking about the Second Amendment, and he's a Jewish guy, and he was talking about well, you know what, Germany disarmed their population in the early 20th century, and we got the Holocaust. He goes, so as a Jewish person whose family survived the Holocaust, and I'm not talking about myself, obviously, I'm talking about Ben Shapiro, but he goes, as a Jewish person, I see insurmountable value to the Second Amendment, because I'm sorry, after the Holocaust, I don't trust any governments, And so even as a leftist, I was like, that is a good fucking point, because Germany didn't see the Holocaust happening. They didn't see the rise of the Third Reich or anything like that. Whenever they were like, you should give up your guns, they're probably like, yeah, we will. They're probably not going to do anything. And then look what happened. Every state that has committed horrible acts of genocide against their own people have disarmed their population first. And so I'm so much of a 2A freak, and it's because I had an experience that could have led to gun violence. And it's well, I'll just tell the story. I at my old job, there was a guy who he was a driver, and he was very mentally unstable, and he called me up one day after he got fired and said, hey, I need you to do me a favor. I was like, all right, well, what's up? He goes, I need you to hold on to my AK-47 for a few days. I was like, what? And he's like, just for a few days. It's not hot. And I was like, why would you lead with that? Like, he was like, I haven't killed anybody. And I was like, I wasn't even going to ask that until you said that. And so I was like, no, man, I'm sorry. I'm not going to hold on to your gun for you. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I have children here. My kids are very curious. I don't have a safe to put it in. I'm sorry, no. And he was like, well, thanks for nothing, and hangs up on me. And then starts texting me this litany of just really bizarre text messages. And then it turned into like vague pseudo threats. And I had been to this guy's house before, and he had like 70 fucking guns, you know? So I freaked out and I called the cops, and I was like, there is this dude. He has made threats against my life. This guy knows where I live. I was like, my wife and kids are here. You know, the company I was working for at the time, you know, they found out about it. They put me and my family up in a hotel. All these cops were looking into this guy. And the cops basically came back and said, there's nothing we can do. You know, he hasn't technically broken the law. And I was like, there's a fucking text message right there. You're telling me that's not like good enough? Like, yeah, he hasn't broken the law. And so it hit me. I was like, you know, after a couple of days, I was like, we have to go back to the house because, you know, my company I work for isn't just going to pay for this hotel forever. Yeah. I was like, we have to go home. And then if he shows up, what am I going to do? I don't own any firearms. You know, he can kick the door down. It was just a shitty apartment. And so after that, after I got off the call with the cops, and they basically were like, sorry, you're on your own. You know, if he contacts you again, call us and we'll file a PPO. And if he breaks that PPO, then we can arrest him. So I was like, I got to deal with this motherfucker 2 more times before there's anything you can do. They're like, unfortunately. And I got off of that phone call and I looked at my wife and I was like, I'm buying a fucking gun. And it was because I had no faith in the police and I had no guarantees that this guy wouldn't lose his shit and go to my house and kill everybody in my house. And I totally understand where your wife is coming from, where she grew up with gun violence and she doesn't want anything to do with it. You know, I would, you know, I know this isn't like a fucking, I'm going to give you advice show, but I would say take her to a gun range.
She won't.
She won't?
No, she is not interested at all. She's just, she is just, not even close to interested. Yeah. And it sucks too, because I really want to get my son into it, and he was really excited about it, but now he's like, oh, I don't want to. And he homeschools with his mom while I'm at work all day. So like, of course, whatever she's saying is going to be, you know, it's going to be gospel. So, you know, like it's a tough case to be in, but you know, it's just whatever. But yeah, man, no, I think that it's not, it's the old adage. It's like, it's not the guns that kill people. It's the people who have them. And if you're safe and you know how to handle it, and you're not, you know, you're not a fucking jackass, like there's nothing ever going to be wrong. And God, I would never want to shoot anybody, but if someone came barreling in my door uninvited, it's like, well, fuck you. Like, I don't want to deal with that. I'm not much of a fighter.
But Mike, are you putting the value of your TV above the life of that fucking B&E artist?
Yes, I am. Absolutely, right. I am.
That's the most base shit you could have said.
Well, no, because how do I know that he wants my TV? My TV's a piece of shit anyway. But it's like, I don't know what this person wants. Anybody who's going to have the fucking stones to go kick a door down with a fucking with a family inside.
And what are you expected to do? Be like, excuse me, sir,
can you just go? And like, I've always had like weapons around the house. I've always had baseball bats. I have like fucking tactical knives hidden in places. It's like, my wife's like, you're fucking paranoid and you think that the world is going to be some zombie apocalypse that's never going to come. And I'm just like, are you not paying attention to what's happening right now? Like, are you not paying attention to the state of this fucking country and what's happening? It's like, it easily can happen. I mean, it easily, shit can go tits up very easily, and it's weird to me that people don't think that it can't, because this shit, because it's what, the modern age, it's the age of fucking the internet, it's the age of being woke. Like, no, it's the age of fucking all they have to do is the financial system collapses, some mystery fucking food plants are being exploded, who knows why, you know, trains are exploding, fucking, you know, people are shooting up electrical plants and towers and stuff. Oh, this is, you know, it's all just some weird coincidence, I guess. And all that it takes is just an economic collapse or another weird virus that definitely didn't come from some lab. It's all it takes is something. People are fucking animals. People revert to that. If your child is starving and it's fucking a situation where you don't know when the next meal's gonna come, of course you're gonna go and try to take some shit from somebody else. Why wouldn't you? That's what, yeah. It's so, I don't know, man. I know that's pretty, that's going down the line pretty far, but it's not that far.
I don't think. Yeah, it's not as far as some people think. Like the if you look at the inflation that we're feeling right now. All right. It would be really easy to connect that to the money that we sent to Ukraine, because all of that money was completely fabricated. It was just printed, or the stimulus packages that Trump and Biden sent out. That 40% of the money in circulation was printed in the last 3 years. That's wild, but the inflation that we're feeling right now is from the 2008 crisis, that we're just feeling that. We haven't even begun to feel the stimulus packages or, all the money to Ukraine. We haven't even got to that point yet. We're just feeling the financial crash of 2008. And it's because the Federal Reserve didn't fix the problem by upping the interest rates. They just patched it up. And it's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a fucking tumor. It's kind of like, it's like putting a Band-Aid on AIDS. The problem is still there, and it's going to get worse, and it's going to rot, and it's going to fester, and eventually that bubble is going to burst, and we're starting to feel that right now. So, like, the price of everything has been going up because there's been this insane inflation in the money supply, and all of a sudden, when the rest of it kicks in, and it's going to kick in quickly because we're seeing multiple banks fail. It's not just the Silicon Valley banks. There's multiple bank systems failing. It's going to come crashing down, and it's going to come crashing down hard. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see the rest of it collapse before the end of the year, because we cannot print our way out of this. We can't spend our way out of this. The only way for this to naturally fix itself is skyrocketing inflation rates, which is going to cause a whole host of other financial economic problems, and so and when that happens, that's when, people who grow their own food are going to be living like kings.
If they can keep people out of their garden with their guns.
Hell yeah, brother.
Goddamn right. No, it's fucking wild, man. It's really wild, and it's scary. And having children, shit, you got 3. I mean, I can't even imagine. But I have one son, and all I can think about is that. I talked to it with my other friend who just had a baby, and his whole world just turned, right? Like he does. It's like, I don't know if the America that we grew up in is going to exist for my son.
No, not at all. He's grown up in a totally different world. I mean, my kids, my oldest is 12 and my youngest is 7.
Wow.
They don't know anything about the world that you and I grew up in.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I was out playing alone, like with no parental supervision or anything until the streetlights kicked on, and it's like, that's shit that we would hear from like my grandparents. They'd be like, yeah, we could stay out as long as we wanted until we just had to be home for dinner. And I was like, yeah, me too. And I think about my I think about my children, if they were outside just somewhere across town playing without me there.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. Like, I'm getting nervous sweats just thinking about it.
Yeah, man.
I can imagine doing that.
No, I know, man. Like, yeah, I ran the fucking streets, son. Like growing up, I was in a smaller town. I was in this place called Jasper, Michigan, and it was just a very small little town. We had a mill, and we had a gas station and a post office, and I think a lumber yard. But that was it. Like it was, there was probably maybe like 300 people in this little shitty town,
Yeah.
and I was just running the streets. I wasn't wearing shoes. I was breaking people's out. I was smoking cigarettes. I was gross as a little kid. I was this fat little shit running around like
Little gangbanger, dude.
it was ridiculous. I was running around with teenagers just doing whatever the fuck I wanted. And I mean that's what happens when you let kids just sort of run rampant. I mean, I don't. My parents worked very hard, and I really appreciate what they did, but that we were very much unattended, and we just did whatever the fuck we wanted. So I can't imagine that. I can't imagine my 10-year-old or my 9-year-old. He's 9, but I was 10 the first time I smoked weed. I mean, come on, man. Like, fucking, I can't imagine that for my son. I couldn't imagine him getting drunk. I was getting drunk and shit. Have you ever saw Gummo?
That sounds familiar, but no, I think I know the movie that you're talking about, but I did never see it.
It's not as extreme as my childhood, but that's my childhood, where they're just running around fucking just being like it takes place in Xena, Ohio, which is close to West Virginia, and it's fucked up. It's like I was just like, God, I was getting flashbacks watching that fucking movie. It was just, but not every kid has that kind of weird backwoods kind of growing up, but like kids my age, when we were children, we really did just run around the woods, or we just ran around doing whatever we want, and everything's so different. And I guess what I'm referring to is like a different America is like if a financial collapse comes, and when you think about like how these other countries are sort of like BRICS, what BRICS is? Where, they're like using resources and gold to back their money. And if our dollar isn't backed by petroleum anymore because Saudi Arabia and stuff, or they're doing deals with China right now, if our dollar isn't backed by anything other than debt, like where does that leave America? And I know they're talking about like this. What is the digital currency and stuff, which is just more made up numbers.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck this is gonna be, and I don't think I'm being too paranoid. I'm very hyper sensitive to my surroundings, and when I see shit, it fucking, I don't know. I'm seeing the writing on the wall. I guess I could be considered fucking paranoid, but I'd rather be paranoid than be caught with my dick in my hand, like, oh, and I know how to grow food. I know how to do that shit. I know how to fucking, I'm not like a survivalist, but I definitely know how to grow food. I definitely, fucking, I've always had my suspicions and doubts on where this country's going, and and it seems to be coming to a head. Ugh.
Yeah.
Bummer town.
Yeah. Well, it's on one hand, it is a bummer, but on the other hand, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that is
God Emperor.
Is this album that's going to come out, which is going to knock your guys' dicks off.
May 2nd. It's going to change the fucking world.
Yeah.
And no more financial collapse. No more world hunger.
This album is the answer to everything.
The light. I agree.
Show this album to the Federal Reserve. They'll be like, I got it.
We're switching back to gold, y'all.
I already got my mortgage, so I don't give a shit about it, about interest rates.
There you go. I'm sorry, but I interrupted you. But what is the light at the end of the tunnel besides God Emperor?
So the light at the end of the tunnel, the white pill, if you will, is when, not if, when the United States federal government collapses. Okay. That is a real opportunity for liberty-minded people to shine. And that is, we don't have Big Brother to watch over us, which they do a shit job at that anyway. And so now's the opportunity for people to really take control of their lives. There's this whole fear-mongering campaign. You hear it a lot on places like Tim Pool, people like Jack Posobiec and people like that, where they're like, if there's a national divorce, then China's going to invade. China is just as spread out economically as we are. They are also on the verge of collapse. And also, how the fuck is China going to invade? You telling me they're going to send their entire naval fleet over the fucking Pacific Ocean, and we're just going to conveniently not going to see that from 2,000 miles away? Like,
Well, they sent fentanyl, so we'll see what else they could do.
well, okay, so some junkies got killed. All right,
It's not
like,
just
if we're
junkies.
talking full scale invasion, it's not possible. It's fear marketing, you know, and there's no way China can possibly successfully invade the United States. We are too big of a country. They're going to have to invade from the West Coast. And even if they do touch ground on the West Coast, they still have the whole ass Rocky fucking mountains to get over if they want to get to the rest of the country. You know, It's not going to happen. It's not economically feasible for them. And there's not resources here that is worth them invading. It's just, it would be territory and nothing else. But even that, like, China's huge. Their influence is huge also. So they're not, there's nothing to gain by invading us. And also, our military is, and I have a major issue with the military industrial complex, as does any like thinking person. But shit, we have our military industrial complex going against the Chinese fucking military. Like, have you seen pictures of their Navy? Their ships are all rusted and falling apart. You know,
I haven't seen that.
Like, I am not remotely afraid of China invading. And so if the healthiest thing for this country to keep it from absolutely imploding and sinking into some kind of civil war is us splitting up, then let's fucking do it. You know, if a mommy and a daddy hate each other's fucking guts, the best thing for them to do is to split up. That's the healthiest thing to do. You know, it's the healthiest thing to do for that child. It's the healthiest thing for them to do. Like, my parents split up after 25 years of marriage because they fucking hated each other, you know? And you know what? Like, my youngest sister was living with them after I moved out, after my older sister moved out. She was stuck in the middle of them as they were splitting up. And that really fucked with her, you know? That, like, it really, really hurt her, you know? And not because they split up, because she was being ping-ponged back and forth between the two, you know? And so the healthiest thing to do is, yeah, like, our country needs to break up. There's no reason that people on the left and people on the right, who almost exist in two different planes of reality, there's no reason for us to share the same country. You know, they don't share the same values. You know, they literally hate each other. And there's been a lot of rhetoric from the left about, like, I don't know, like, oh, if there was a civil war, like, the right would lose because we control X, Y, and Z. And it's like, you don't understand. The right has been wanting a civil war for a long fucking time. The first time you called them racist, they're like, all right, let's fucking go, buddy.
Yeah.
You know, like, that, like, listen to what right wingers say. Listen to what they talk about. They're ready for a civil war, dude. They've been ready for decades. They have all the fucking guns. They have all the fucking training. They have all the fucking military. They have all the fucking police. All right, that's what the right has. The left has art. The right has all the shit that will fucking kill you. So, like, stop. So to left wingers out there, like, stop poking this bear, man, and just let's say, let's go our separate ways and let's not end this in violence. You know, because that's all that I want. Is I just want, like, let's go our separate ways and let's not fucking try to kill each other.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that sounds fucking so sad though, man. Like, I would love
Might not have been as good of a white pill as I sold it as.
Well, I mean, it's just, you know, like, I would like to think of us as a united country, and you know, like, I would love for it to get past this whole, like, cultural war where we can't even have conversations with each other, and be able to, like, you know, I don't agree with you, but that's fine. Like, you don't have to. I don't have to fucking agree with everybody. I don't have to like everybody in my fucking neighborhood, but I don't want them to die. I don't want them to fucking, you know, I don't want the neighborhood to split up into fucking 4 different grids, and now they control the power plant, and now we have to, like, build our new infrastructure here, and it's just, to me, I would just love to see more unity and stop this rhetoric of division, because that's what's pushing this is that there's this narrative where you no longer can even talk to a Republican, or you can't talk to a Democrat, because they're just, it's being pushed by the highest powers right now, and it's fucking ridiculous. So it would be nice to be able to get some people that actually care, but the system is so corrupted. I don't think that, well, I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if it's possible. That's all. But
The additional divorce.
well, no, not the divorce. I think that is very possible. I think Texas has been trying to do it for a long time, since they've
For
been
like
in
150 years.
Yeah. I think that is very, very possible. But I would like to see us be able to talk more and talk things out, and not be like, "Hey, shut them down," or shout people down, or like it's just. It's so ridiculous. I don't mind having people that I don't agree with in my presence. Like, I don't have to agree with everybody. I have friends that I vehemently disagree with, and and I love them to death. So I know that's just me, but maybe we should listen to another song.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
So there's one called The Sound of Raw Meat. And this one's a pretty short one. It's less than 3 minutes long, but it's really intense. And I'm shooting a music video for it.
Tight. All right. When we come back, you gotta give us the concept of them if you want to. You don't gotta do shit, but
oh hell yeah.
But here,
I love talking about this shit. We could literally stream for 10 fucking hours, and I will not run out of shit to talk about. So eventually, you're gonna have to be like, Andy, shut the fuck up. I have to end this.
I mean, we're coming to the end here soon, but I'm having a good time, so like I don't mind at all. I have to go take care. Hey, be well, lovely ladies. Thanks for coming in. I hope you are feeling more healthy and living that good life, living that thinner life. That's how we gotta do it. We all gotta take responsibility and do it big. All right, we are gonna listen to The Sound of Raw Meat, which is an awesome name for a song, and we will be right back. Let's fucking go.
Hell yeah.
That shit got me hyped, son.
Yeah, man. That
I remember listening to that one because of the name and shit. I was like, God damn, there is some fucking aggression going on there, baby.
Yeah. Well, okay, so my basic philosophy with kind of marrying this ideology with heavy metal is anger is a emotion that I really appreciate, and there's a lot of shit to be angry about in not only our society but with the crimes of our government, you know. And so what better way to do that than to do a heavy metal concept album where you just put all of your fucking rage into it, you know?
Hell yeah.
And it's weird. Like I am a bubbly person 99% of the time, where I'm just like, hey partner, you know, like that, like that's my personality. You know, I've always been like the class clown and stuff like that. I always like play with my kids and I just always bubbly. And then I write like music like that, and then the stories that I write are super fucked up and dark. And so I think that's why I have such a bubbly personality, is because I put all that dark shit either into music or into a story or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's the healthy way to do it, I would suppose. I mean, it's better than fucking, you know, punching holes in the wall and like throwing your kids down the stairs or something. It's fucking.
I mean, there's a time and place for all that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they get
not
lippy.
punching holes in their walls, that's expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Who can afford that? But I mean, these motherfuckers get lippy in this household. That no, like I have that same thing. I've been mighty. Thank you so much for those gifted subs. Let me give you know, like right now I'm on like I've been reading. Anytime I start getting to a depressive hole, I start like just reading all these apocalyptic books. And I sort of shifted into Stephen King, and I don't know if you've read any Stephen King, but he gets
huge Stephen King fan.
Love Stephen King. He fucking is violent. Like it's just,
oh yeah.
Like I love The Stand. I mean that's like his apocalypse book, but like right now I'm reading 11/22/60 whatever it is. It's the one.
11/22/63.
Yeah, about the JFK thing, and it's fucking. There's this scene where this dad busts into this house and fucking takes a sledgehammer to his son's face, and it's just I'm just like sitting there like, oh, that's fucked up, but it's feeding that thing. And I think as you know, as a kid too, I would listen to metal a lot, and I'd be just jumping around, and it's that emotion that's inside, that fucking frustration, that fucking anger, that fucking it's all in there. It's still in there. And Eddie Brown music. Thank you, my friend. 8 months. Eddie Brown music. There you go, Eddie. That was for you, buddy. Let me give a shout out to Eddie. Everybody, go follow Eddie Brown Music. He is a wonderful music streamer here on Twitch. He's also been on this program, and he is a country music artist, but he doesn't just play country. If that's not your thing, you'll be very happy by going to Eddie Brown Music. But yeah, man, just outlets for that.
I personally hate country music, but I'm gonna go subscribe to Eddie Brown Music.
Go subscribe. Well, Eddie doesn't just play country music. He fucking you hate all country music?
No, I hate radio country.
Yeah, I think a lot of radio country sucks.
Tyler Childers is fucking incredible.
Sturgill Simpson.
Oh yeah. My god,
fucking
he's
murder.
So good. Sturgill Simpson's great. And then who is it? The Dead South. They're fucking great too.
Yeah.
So I hate country music that's on the radio, but pretty much everything else. Like I love Merle Haggard. I like old country music. I mean, half of my childhood was spent in Oklahoma, and so like Okie from Muskogee, like that's, yeah, I love like old country, and then I love sort of the more independent country from nowadays.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just pop music in general is sometimes hard to listen to. I do like me some WAP though. Bucket and a mop, WAP, WAP. But it's yeah, man, having an outlet for your aggression is important. It's like part of it for me is just fucking working out and reading fucking terribly violent books and listening to fucking sometimes listening to some violent fucking music and
Mhm.
watching some fucked up zombie shows or something. It's just it's a good thing to have these outlets because there's nothing worse than keeping that shit bottled up and
Yeah.
having it project out onto people you love. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
the worst thing ever.
Well, I just recently had a talk with my middle son. He's 10, and he was having some issues at school, and the school counselor called me, and we were talking. It sounded like he may be going through some like a depressive episode, and so I was talking to him, and he's always had a hard time opening up, and I've always struggled with depression. My wife has always struggled with depression, and so it's something that me and her understand very, very well. And so, I was just talking to him, and I was like, when you have like weird thoughts and feelings that you might feel embarrassed about or might feel uncomfortable or thoughts that might scare you or something like that, I was like, there's two things that you can do. You can either talk to somebody about it or you can ignore them and hope that they go away. I was like, but what happens when you ignore them is you bury them deep down inside and they start to get rotten. And then when they get rotten, they fester. And then when they fester, they're going to come out. No matter what, they're going to come out, but you have control over how they come out.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay. And so we had, I was super surprised because he's never been able to like really open up, but we had like a fucking 45-minute deep conversation about how he was feeling.
Wow.
So I felt like it was pretty productive.
Fuck yeah.
I also bought him ice cream, so I don't know if that was the secret either. Maybe I just have to feed the kid, and he's like, "I'll tell you what you want."
Yeah, I'll tell you whatever. Just give me more ice cream. Well, man, it took me a long time to seek help, seek therapy, and I wish I would have went because like I was a horrible alcoholic, drug addict when I was like going from my 20s into my 30s, and I wish that I would have sought help then. Maybe not AA because AA is not really. I mean, it's cool, and I'm happy AA exists, and it helped my sister.
It's not for everybody.
Yeah, but like I wish I would have sought like help to sort of deconstruct everything that I was sort of running away from and burying with booze and alcohol or booze and drugs and shit. So, but it took me a long time to go out and seek help, and it really fucking changed the game for me. And so it's good. That's one of the things I like about about this new generation is that they're more open about their mental health, but then it kind of goes a little far, and they'll now they're defined by their fucking mental health, and like they need safe spaces and shit. It's like, okay, I mean, not that far, but it is nice that we're destigmatizing it because it was something that wasn't. I mean, like, I'm glad that your parents were, and my parents too. My parents, because I was a troubled kid. I was fucking shit up, being aggressive and interrupting, and ADHD, the whole thing, So like, fucking, I was getting help and stuff as a kid, but as I was an adult and I became a teenager, I started rejecting all that shit. And I was like, I don't even know, and I'll just take these drugs and everything will be fine, and I'm good, and go fuck yourself, and destroying like relationships, myself, burning bridges. It's just a mess, but still, it's a good thing that people are able to sort of talk about their problems and shit. It's super important, and having an outlet like making a song like "The Sound of Raw Meat," which I want to know what is the video concept.
So I'm working with one of my business partners about sort of the concept of the music video. I think it's still kind of up in the air, but I chose that song for music video because it's short enough to put on TikTok. Just, because I planned this before they made it to where you can put 10-minute long videos on TikTok, which is a terrible idea. I'm sorry, but so yeah, I picked that song, and the song is it focuses on how the God Emperor, if you will, sees or sort of the value that it places on human life. You know, the lyrics say, grind them up, hang them from rafters, gun in mouth, you know, spraying the walls with their bloodlust. And so it's like it's an organization that does not value human life very much at all, you know. And so when you have soldiers that are coming home from war and killing themselves and hurting themselves and stuff like that, you kind of have to think of, you know, how does the organization that did this to them in the first place think of them, you know? And that's kind of what the song is about in the beginning, but then, you know, near the end, it's just sort of this realization, fuck your government, I don't need it, you know. And that to me, and I'm not trying to be like, I don't know, I'm not trying to be like a cocky douchebag or anything, but that song, as short and intense as it is, holds the most amount of meaning for me, you know, because I've had friends that went off to war and came back and they were different and they saw horrible things, or they were put in horrible situations where they had to take lives that they did not want to take. And, you know, and these are images that they are stuck with for the rest of their life, you know? And so, I'm very angry at the organization responsible for putting my friends in that situation. And this song is a love letter to them, you know.
A very aggressive love letter. And I mean, but hey, man, that's fucking, you know, that's not a slight at all. It's fucking, I dig it. So the imagery that you want for the video, what are you thinking?
I mean, I really want to put somebody in there, like in military uniform, like maybe struggling with PTSD or something like that, you know, intrusive thoughts, you know, sort of scary images flashing in their mind, you know. So that way, I don't know. I really want the message of the music video to be like, this is what the cost of war is.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not always a cost that you can just see outright.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fucking, it's dark. It's dark shit. You also got a podcast, but are you still doing your podcast?
Yeah, it's been on hiatus since like October, but that's because we've got some pretty big things in the works, and I don't have a launch date for it specifically. And I'm also not sure how much I'm allowed to say, but I know I'll just keep it safe. So myself, my co-host Ben DeYoung, we have a podcast called
You mean DeJong?
Ben DeJong.
He's Asian, right?
Right. So me, my co-host Ben DeYoung, Mike Grappel of the Fundamental Opposites podcast, as well as RJ Evans, who is the host of the Who Touched the Thermostat podcast, and a guy named Greg Palmer. I don't think he's got a podcast, but we're all trying to start a media marketing company specifically for liberty-minded content creators. And it's called State Sanctioned Media. It's tongue in cheek.
And your podcast, we should mention, is called We Love the State. Is that what it's called? We Love State.
We Love the State. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can find that in the links in the chat, guys. And you can find his TikTok and stuff. He has very funny TikTok too. You should go check out. And if you're listening on the audio side of this, make sure you go and click around on the links and make sure you go support our boy Andy and what he's doing, because he's fucking murdering the game. But I'm sorry, you're gonna start a state-sanctioned media company.
Yeah,
it's backed by the state.
Yeah. I mean, mind. Sick, dude.
Still sick. You know, Eddie wanted to know if you like George Jones and or Colt Ford.
So I don't know what either one of those things are.
George Jones?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Oh, George Jones is a fucking country singer, like an old school country singer. His famous song was "A Wreath on Her Door." He hung a wreath on her door. I don't think I'm saying that right, but whatever. And Colt Ford, I believe, is a newer dude who's like 20, but he sounds like that is not the person. That is not him. Never mind. Colt Ford is not the young. I got that one confused. All right, country rap. Nice. I don't know who Colt Ford is, but Eddie was also saying that my grandfather, my dad, he stopped loving her today. He stopped loving her today. Hang a wreath on her. I fucking love that song. My grandfather, my dad, and I were all in the military service, and the government is derelict in their duties for veterans. Just look at how fucked up the VA healthcare is. Yeah, no, I got friends too who hear the same complaints, man. It's very fucked up that they just sort of just send them through the meat grinder and then just let them fucking out into the world raw. It's a very fucked up thing. But yeah, man, I appreciate what you do in your TikTok. What made you start making these TikToks and doing your thing on that?
Well, it was a mix of not being able to do stand up, but also my entire family does not give two single shits about politics. And so I'm the only weirdo in this house who's just obsessed with it. And so I was like, I have nowhere to be funny. And because my wife and kids have heard all the jokes that I make 50,000 times. And so I'm barely funny to them anymore. And so I was like, I need an outlet to be funny. And I just needed some kind of creative outlet because I wasn't working on anything. And so my wife had TikTok, and I was one of those naysayers who's like, TikTok is gay and blah, blah, blah. So I finally downloaded it because I was sick and tired of getting sent links.
Yeah.
And that's when it hit me. I was like, I should make libertarian videos. I should make videos about anarchy and the shit that I care about. And I should do it on TikTok. So that way, and I was not at all thinking that I would have any degree of success. I was thinking like, this will just give me something that I can make, and I can send these videos to my friends, and hopefully I'll make them laugh. And that was about a year ago, and I'm 60,000 followers in now. So it's been a wild ride because there's people that I've got to meet because of this, and like even on TikTok, 60,000 is not like a lot of followers. You know, there's people. There's a dude who I've never even heard of before in my life. He's got 26 million followers. So I was like, what the fuck is going on here? You know.
It is a wild app in that sense. It's like viral now isn't just a million views. It's like 25 million views.
Yeah, it's insane. And so so I was I've just been making these little skits, and it gives me an outlet for my writing, and gives me an outlet for comedy, and it gives me a place that I can talk about the things, you know, these political things where I can talk to other people who are obsessed with politics.
Yeah.
You know, and so, yeah, I never in a million years thought I would get, you know, 1,000 followers, let alone 60,000 followers. That's just wild.
Yeah, man, it's cool. It's a fucking cool little spot, and I was the same way. I didn't really think TikTok was shit, but then I start like it's wild that you can I'll see news stories and shit breaking that the like media, even like independent journalists, won't even touch for like a couple days after, right? Like you see like frontline shit. It was wild when the Ukraine war started and you were seeing all these frontline TikToker, you know, soldiers like showing what was going on, and it's really interesting. What do you think about this whole banning it in the U.S.? Do you think it's Meta? Do you think it's the Chinese? What do you think? What do you think's driving this?
Well, it's definitely the tech industry driving it because it is the biggest competitor against YouTube right now.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go and you look up the hashtags on TikTok, it'll show you the amount of views that hashtag is getting. Now go over to Twitter and compare that.
Right.
to whatever viral hashtag is in trending, you know, and you'll see like 15,000 posts,
Yeah.
you know, 20,000 posts, 100,000 posts, and you can go plug in politics to the hashtags in TikTok, and it's like, 21 billion views.
Yeah.
3 times the population of the fucking planet have seen a TikTok with this hashtag. You know, it's massive.
Yeah.
And for anybody out there who's like, oh, well, TikTok is an app that people, the Chinese are using to fucking spy on American citizens. Sure, probably. But guess what? Your own government does that 10 times as bad on every other app on your phone.
Well, it's not even government. It's fucking these corporations. Like Meta is fucking. They do. It's the same shit that they're siphoning off. And it's not like the only investors in Meta is some like American-based company that's stealing your information. Like these are multinational conglomerates that are sharing information across the globe. So if you think it's just the Chinese doing it, and if you don't think the Chinese doesn't have access to other forms of other media platforms, then well, you're just shitting your own pants there, Sonny boy. But yeah, man, it does seem to be the Zuck trying to Zuck it out. And it's funny because like, and I'm seeing this a lot on TikTok, is like a lot of people are like, well, what does he think is going to happen, that like we're going to stop, you know, you take away TikTok and we're going to go and get on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, nobody's just going to make another TikTok.
And you know, in the way that shorts are going on YouTube, I'll be goddamn if I can't get monetized on YouTube. It's such a pain in the ass. Mm-hmm. What's the biggest payout on TikTok you've gotten? Which by at least they pay people out.
I made like $250 from an ad that I did one time.
Oh, sweet.
But the ad process for TikTok is so convoluted, and like I kept emailing this. Like I've done 2 ads. One of them, the first one that I got was for a weight loss supplement, which I thought was hilarious.
It worked, obviously.
so like that's one that I got paid for. But the other one, it was for a beard company, like a beard oil and soap company. I was like, this is perfect. So I was like emailing him back and forth, and I was like, I got the script. What do you think about it? I'm doing it on this day because I'm getting a haircut, and so I'm gonna do this whole thing. And they're like, oh my god, it sounds cool. And I was like, all right, here's the script. What do you think about it? And they just ghosted me, and they stopped responding. And so I was like, okay, well, you know, I shot the thing. It's in my drafts. I just need to know, you know, if it's good. And no response. And then finally I was just like, fuck it. I posted it because it was a funny fucking video.
It was good, motherfucker.
And
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it was. So anyway, I never got paid for that one, but it's still up on my TikTok. It's called Whiskey, Ink, and Lace.
Whiskey, Ink, and Lace. Let's watch it. I got it up. How far down is it?
Oh, shit, man. That's last summer.
Oh, shit. Okay, well maybe we won't watch that one, but we'll hold on here. Let's go over here. We'll pull a couple videos up, and then we'll send you on your way. Intel is king. If you got the Intel, you can control a lot of things. Yeah, I agree, Eddie. How do I do this?
Oh shit! I can forward it to you on TikTok.
Okay, cool. Do that. And where are you at now? Let me get you up here. There you are. Did you know who Nick Natoli was before you listened to that podcast?
No, I never heard of him before, but I just thought it was a really good conversation.
Nick is wild, dude. That dude just releases, like, he just constantly releases new, and he's killing it on YouTube, honestly. He fucking murders the game over there. This is his page, everybody, if you guys want to go, and it's in his links. If you just push !AK, that'll bring him up. Which I didn't do. That sucked. Oh, it's up there in chat. Okay. Okay, so let me go back. Let me see if it came in. No, this is not, that is not it. That is not TikTok. That's Instaham.
There you go.
Oh, there it is. Let's check it out.
Oh, my beard is so dry and itchy. Mine too. It is so miserable. That's it, man. I can't take this anymore. I'm shaving. Don't do it, man. You need that beard to cover up your ugly face. Then what am I supposed to do? What is that? It says whiskey, ink, and lace beard oil. Whiskey, ink, and lace beard oil for your beard? I know this is going to sound crazy, but just hear me out. Okay, what if we used the beard oil?
Let's watch Zombie Apocalypse.
All right, everyone, listen up. It's the zombie apocalypse. All of the world's governments are gone. Civilization has pretty much collapsed. If we're going to survive, we're going to have to make a few changes. Good point. Yep, I agree. Okay, well, first things first, names. Ditch your old ones. Right. Okay, why?
A weed
Yeah,
whacker.
what's wrong with my original name? Just trust me on this, okay? Now, instead of using your real name, we'll just call you whatever state you come from. Okay, so for example, I'm from Michigan, so you guys will call me Michigan. Okay, got it? Where are you from? Michigan. Me too. Shit. Have you ever lived anywhere else? Michigan, born and raised. I've never even left this state. I lived in Indiana for a little while. Perfect. Okay, so we'll call you Indiana. Have you lived anywhere else? Visited anything? No, not really. He's lying. What? Oh yeah, he's definitely lying. Where'd you live before? Nowhere, all right? It's like for a week, okay? It doesn't even count. Well, we can't both be named Michigan. This is a really stupid naming convention, but he's right. Where was it? It was Bangkok. He said Bangkok. Indiana! Bangkok it is. Glad we got that one squared away. I am not going to be called Bangkok. What were you doing in Bangkok? That is none of your business. You banged a lady boy. I was just going to say, lady boy. I'm looking for a different group. All right, everyone, listen up. It's the zombie.
Man, I love, but that's what I love about TikTok too, is you could do all this shit. It's just, it's so fun, man. Like, I spend too many hours on it. Honestly, it's not good. I should probably not spend that much time on it. Anyways, whatever. It's fine. We're good. So Andy, I appreciate you coming on here, and of course your album comes out, God Emperor. But what's the name of the project name?
Monopoly on Violence.
Monopoly on Violence. It comes out in May, and we'll fucking just remind me when it comes around, and I'll make sure that I shout it out on the podcast for you, or you can come back on. Like, honestly, I had a great time chatting with you. You can come on anytime you want. Just let me know.
Oh, dude, this has been great. I will definitely come back on.
Yeah, man, it was a good time, and whenever your podcast gets back rolling up again, let me know, and we'll do it to it, buddy. But
hell yeah.
I appreciate it. Everybody, make sure you mark your calendar for May 2nd. And of course, if you're listening to this on the audio end, make sure that you go and click those links in the show notes so that you can stay up to date. You can email the show at wespeakenglishgood@gmail.com. Let us know how we're doing, what you're thinking, and make sure you go and click on all the other links that are in there, because there's fucking some sexy ass links down there, like links to my music and all that jazz. So, all right, Andy, I appreciate your time, my friend. Thank you so much, and I'll send you a link to this once it's all up. With, there's a YouTube and an audio version they'll come out here shortly. So we'll be there. We'll be doing it. Everybody, please put your hands together. Oh wait, I forgot. I've been asking people one more thing. What's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Okay. So I used to work at a nursing home. All right. And I was a nurse's aide, and this is right after I got married, and I would go and I'd work the rehab hall, and every once in a while there'd be an old married couple in the same room. And so I would go to these married couples, and I'd be like, they'd say, I've been married for 60 years. I've been married for 40 years, whatever it was. And I'd be like, wow, that's really cool. What's your secret? And I got all kinds of responses, all different worldviews and stuff like that. But the one that I heard the most often, and it was usually couples that were the happiest to be next to each other, were the ones that said, learn how to be friends with your wife. Learn how to make her your best friend. And if she's the first person that you want to talk to in the morning and the last person you want to talk to, or the only, or the person you want to talk to right before you go to bed, you know, it's going to help your relationship. And I really took that to heart. And then my wife and I just kind of started looking at each other differently. We looked at each other as friends, and not like roommates, but like, you know, my wife is my best friend in the whole world. And our relationship was on the rocks at that point. And it's amazing now, you know? So to anybody out there who is in a relationship, if your girl's not your best friend, you're doing it wrong.
Beautiful words to end on. Everybody put your hands together for Andy Koons. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate you. I'll talk to you soon, my
Thanks, buddy.
There goes Andy Koons. There goes Andy Koons. There goes Andy Koons into the night. Andy Koons. He is so good. Okay. Andy, he has a joke. His last name is Koons, and he has a joke about how no black people want to be his friend because of his racist last name. It's very funny. All right. Okay. So that's it. So we'll be back on Friday. Mighty, thank you so much. And you know what? I want to show some love to Mighty, because Mighty was in here gift subbing, and so was Moving Dutchman. I appreciate you guys gift subbing. On top of your subbing, you guys are just amazing. So I appreciate y'all.
Hello, Mighty. This is Jean-Claude Van Damme, and I want to give you a huge thank you, a big ol' splits, and a as a thank you for all that you do for this channel.
And of course, we're going to have to give some love to MD. Y'all are the best. Hey, Corey, thanks for coming in, buddy. It was good to see you. I'm glad you dropped by. We're going to raid out, but I don't know who we're going to raid yet. So give me a second. Let me show some love to
Hello,
MD.
Moving Dutchman. This is Gandalf. Thank you for all that you do for this channel. And always remember, a Moving Dutchman is never late, nor early, but arrives precisely when he means to.
Oh, Gail is live. Okay, well, we're going to go see Gail then. Gail Hakes West. I just hung out with Gail in Chicago, which I didn't even talk about Chicago. I just came in talking about myself. Chicago was fun. We went to Chicago over the weekend, so maybe we'll save that for Friday. So we'll be back on Friday for... I have a dentist appointment on